It's a historic day at the Adelaide Oval this afternoon as Port Adelaide look to lock away consecutive top four finishes for the third time in their history, whilst Carlton farewell club great Mark Murphy in his 300th game. There is a late change as well for the Blues. Patrick Cripps is out with a quad injury, so Corey Durden, the Central District's product, makes his debut. Yesterday, Jack Martin also coming out of the squad with a hamstring injury, so Levi Casbolt coming in for Carlton. They're heavily undermanned. Port Adelaide come in as the informed team as well. Aaron Bryan's with you to call the action on Grandstand AFL, and alongside me as always is Neil Cross. Welcome, Crossy.
Aaron, good to be here. It's a great afternoon for footy. I'm not so sure we're going to see a great contest. Certainly Carlton fans will be sick of the same story. We're just making sure that we look after our players going into next, and they've been doing that since they last made a final back in 2013. So yep, it's a bit of deja vu all over again for them. And Port Adelaide, well, top two's a possibility now, so there's plenty on the line for the power. The
earlier loss to the Western Bulldogs to Hawthorn certainly opens the door up. And as you touched on, it could be a one-sided game, but we said that last week in the showdown and we got a cracking contest. So weather's beautiful here at the Adelaide Oval, and hopefully the game opens up as well. Your experts this afternoon, firstly, Carlton Premiership player Scott Camporelli. Welcome, Campo.
Yeah, thanks. Good to be here, guys, and thanks, Crossy. Nice to give my old team a whack just to get the day going, but it has been a long time, and it has been disappointing as a past player to see what the club's going through at the moment. And again, it's going to be interesting to see what happens at year's end. But congratulations to Mark Murphy, 300 games. He's been a long servant of that footy club and deserves to go out there in the right fashion today.
Alongside Scott Camporelli is Adelaide Crows Premiership player Rod Jamison. Welcome, Jamo.
Aaron, Crossy, Campo, thank you. And probably to add to that, Campo, and it sounds like there might be a change, but we'll wait and see. But if they do so, 8 coaches in 20 years. It would be staggering that that's actually taken place at such a proud club.
Mark Murphy's played under 6 in his career, unfortunately for him, but a really great resume to finish off his career. So 300 games as of today, former pick 1 in 2005, former skipper for the Blues, an All-Australian, a 2-time best and fairest. And unfortunately, Campo, I can't really ask you about his character because the year that he came to the club was the year that you left, but when you reflect on his career as a whole and what he's been able to do in a really difficult period for the club, do you feel like he's had success?
Yeah, well, I think anyone who plays 300 games has had success, and he's played at a really high level. It's probably the last 18 months, to be fair, where there was some inconsistencies, had some injuries as well, and to be fair, he's probably had the brunt of a fair bit. Obviously, when Chris Judd was there, him and Bryce Gibbs, they had a pretty good combination going through that period of time. But he's struggled through and captained the club in some really difficult circumstances as well. So once again, wish him all the best. Not too many players get to 300. 1%, I think, ever played 300 games. So he's probably limped to the line, to be fair, but still a great servant of the footy club.
I think it's up over around about 16,000 players, or very close to that number, and only that 1% has played 300 or more. It's a monumental milestone.
The other underlying storyline today, it might be Eddie Betts' last game at the Adelaide Oval. He's currently out of contract at 34 years of age. Earlier today, Hawthorn defeating the Western Bulldogs by 27 points. So if they win today, the Port Adelaide could move into top spot, depending on how the other game over in Geelong goes. It's the Cats and the Saints, and we'll keep you updated with that. The text line, if you'd like to get in touch, 0467 922 891. The 5th member of our commentary team down on the boundary to get us set for bounce down is Jack Piquetta. Welcome, Jack.
Good afternoon, Aaron. Absolute pleasure to be here today for this one. As you guys have mentioned, perfect conditions out there for football. Blue skies, no breeze to speak of whatsoever. 17 degrees, no excuses today out there. Port Adelaide's Tom Jonas has won the toss. Port will be kicking to the riverbank, to the southern end, to start this first term. Starting on the bench for Carlton, we've got Josh Honey, Lockie O'Brien, Liam Stocker, Zach Fisher, their medical substitute, Samo Petrevski-Seaton. A lot made to Port Adelaide's depth. They've got Dan Houston, Connor Rosie, Willem Drew, Pete Laddams on the bench, with Sam Mays coming in for Pepper as the medical sub.
15,000 in the house, round 22 action. It's Port Adelaide hosting Carlton on Grandstand AFL. To kick things off, here's Neil Cross.
Umpire preparing himself. Crowd well and truly expectant of a power win. We'll see how this turns out. Out of the middle straight away, first clearance goes for Ollie Wines. Murphy in game 300 starts well with a little hand pass, but Port get it back. Dersma forward hand pass out wide for Raymond. One bounce inside 50, 45 out, and just got it across the goal face. off the left boot for the minor score. Port Adelaide by the behind after 25 seconds of the opening quarter.
Hopefully that's not an indication how the game is going to go, but number of disposals and Carl Amon, who's damaging too much space.
Nick Newman played on from the defensive goal square but turns it over. Scott Lysett marking it right half forward in a contest. Sends it back where it came from, just leans back on the kick into the 50. Dixon in front position, couldn't take it. Spills to Georgiades, he's wrapped up in a tackle. Walsh puts his head over the ball, gets it out, a hand pass towards Kemp, who's the debutant for the Blues. He turns it straight over though. Bergman gathers, puts it on the boot and spirals it towards the boundary line. Just bounces in play and actually goes backwards, so play won't be halted. Mark Murphy gathers, he's brought down in the tackle and a free kick is awarded for the hold. Swung around into the ground by Xavier Dersma, and Mark Murphy, the 300 gamer in his final game, will receive it for the Blues in the right back pocket.
Well, he's probably a little lucky, to be quite honest. He just dropped it in the tackle, so I guess when you play 300 you get a free one, Joe.
You get a free ride today.
Just a little bit of pity for the 300 gamer. He goes to Dow, who takes the mark, finds Walsh on centre wing. Walsh plays on immediately. He's on the boundary line, down to Casbolt. So Casbolt from there sends it to the top of the 50. It's still out on the eastern side though. It comes off hands to Burton, and just as he tried to get his kick away, he was pushed off the ball over the boundary line. Throw in just on the 50 arc, right half forward for Carlton.
And just repeating the late change as well today. So Patrick Cripps is out of the squad. Quad injury cited there. So as a result, Corey Durden makes his debut, and Brodie Kemp as well for the Blues. Both rucks miss the tap. It spills to Boak, gets boot to ball, just heading towards the eastern wing. Murphy can cut it off though. Gathers inside the boundary line, wheels around towards the scoreboard pocket. Big rise from behind by Cleary, brought it to ground. Spills to Betts though. Threw it on the boot from the impossible angle. Eddie Betts across the goal face. Bounces just inside the field of play, and a boundary throw in to come in the left forward pocket. We nearly saw an Eddie special early on here. It's Port Adelaide leading by a point. 2.5 gone in the opening quarter.
How ironic had he kicked something from there when he's done it so many times.
You were reminiscing.
I was then. I was up.
It's a recurring dream. So the ball back into play. Betts comes to the front of the pack, didn't touch it fortunately. Casbolt pushes off, gave the hand pass out, and the kick around the corner from Kennedy was astray again, just hooked it. So scores a level after nearly 3 minutes in this opening quarter out of behind a piece.
So Bonner has it in the defensive goal square. Plays on and heads down the corridor for the power. Dixon in front position, got a hand to it. Spills behind to Plowman. He couldn't take it. Picked up by Kennedy, though, for the Blues. Gives it to Sard. A tumbling ball into the 50. Beats Ed Curnow. Gathered cleanly, though, by Durden, the debutant, but turns it over. Straight to Wines. The power vet heads out to right half back. Hits up Bergman. He'll continue down the western side. 1-on-1 awaits. Gregg brought it to ground at the fist. Fantasia comes to a rove. A hand pass to Dixon out wide. Just stood outside the field of play, and as a result, boundary throw-in to come. Just forward of centre wing for the power, up by a point. Scores level, rather, I could say.
He's just got a good feel for the game, Robbie, hasn't he? Robbie Gray, just smart, just knew that there was a Fantasia was in behind him and just tried to tap the ball on.
Ball back into play. Lysa with the tap down, found the Boak, and then Wines receives a hand pass. Wasn't the greatest of kick. Nunes with the intercept mark. Then he decides to go short to Kennedy. Kennedy still at half back for the Blues. Short again by Nunes, who ran on and took the mark.
Every time I see number 32 for Carlton, I just keep going, David Glascott. Is it David?
Yeah, it's David Glascott.
Yep.
Every time, I don't know, it's just he's not quite as skinny as what he is, or didn't have the hair, but
good player, David Glascott.
He was.
Yeah, but like all players today, Glascott was part of the generation socks down.
He was too.
Nunes' kick wasn't a good one. It was knocked out of play from the boundary throw, and Amon gathers for the power. Just threw it on the boot. Skyward to centre half forward. Marshall sitting underneath it, couldn't take it. Trying to pick it up was Fantasia. He's got 4 Blues on him. Fell onto the ball. They fell on him. No free kick. Ball up to come attacking edge of the centre square. There's a bit going on in the afterwards as well. Fantasia in a tussle with Newman, it looks like. Meanwhile, the umpire just quickly throws it up to Koning up against Lysett, who got the tap down for the power, but Walsh read it best. Coming through, his hand pass wasn't clean. Butters brought down without the footy, no free kick. Walsh gets it out. Now Newman can kick towards left half back. Hits up Fisher all alone. The Blues can reset. So 1 behind a piece, 5-minute mark of the opening quarter on Grandstand AFL. The other game today over in Geelong, is the Cats up against St Kilda. We'll keep you up to date with the scores there.
Fisher took his time, went down the line looking for big Charlie Curnow, put a foot in the middle of Wines' back, and I mean a foot. And the umpires ruled that as not a legitimate attempt at a mark. So Wines will get the free kick. He's just slightly ahead of centre wing on the broadcast side. Charlie Curnow having a bit of a discussion with the umpire about the legality of what he did. Umpires call play on. Wines plays on. Keeps it on the broadcast side, and then coming around the pack was Georgiades to take the mark. 45 from goal. Dixon just let him through basically and gave him an armchair ride to the marking contest.
Just gets better this year, hasn't he? He's really improved. He's had games if you want to see him grow as the year goes on. So I think all Port Adelaide fans would be happy with it. Probably just is not in games long enough, but can be really damaging.
Pretty good in front of goals. 30 goals, 16 for the season. He's going to have to kick this one every bit of 55. He's hooked it in going for distance, and he's got it. Has he got it all the way there? It was off Dixon, down in front of the goals. We're going to have a look at this. But it was towed through by Marshall. Dixon brought it back into play. It was the other side of the goalpost. It was going through for the minor score, and Dixon got an arm to it.
Oh.
And it looks like the question is not whether the ball was in play or not when Dixon tapped it back, but who actually got the foot to the ball.
I think that's probably the other question, Crossy. They need to go back that 5 seconds, don't they? Did it look like it was over the line, or Charlie Dixon was clear close up that he kept the football in?
Bit hard to judge from our angle. But it's
That's a goal.
and having a good look at this. Is it Murphy, the other player there? No, it's not. It's
The answer's back here too, Crossy. he's back in town.
Well, you can see on the replay, he's kicked it underneath his foot.
Yeah.
Now, the only question is did it touch the bottom of the Carlton player's foot as he's kicked it? But Marshall's definitely got foot on ball, and it doesn't look like it deflects off the Carlton player's foot.
Did the umpire, what did he call?
I didn't hear what he called.
Yeah.
and that's going to be the ultimate decider. It looks pretty close. They keep on going back and forth, so it might be a question of what the goal umpire had thought.
I think it's a goal.
Review complete. Looking at these angles, we can see the ball makes contact with the Port Adelaide attacker last. Decision on scoreboard.
Well, that was pretty clear cut. It's a goal. So Marshall with the first of the afternoon after a long pause, and Port Adelaide take the lead. So it's 1-1-7 Port Adelaide, Carlton just the one behind, and we've gone through 8 minutes in the opening quarter on Grandstand AFL.
Yeah, well, as a coach, those things are really frustrating. So we see on the replay, Georgiades is clearly right on his limit, and the ball just doesn't get hit through. So there's two Carlton defenders. One is Wiedering. He's trying to hold down Dixon, and De Koning, who's the ruckman, actually tries to get it through but misses it. So it comes back into play. Disappointing, really, from a Carlton perspective, to kill that ball and not give him another chance at shot at goal.
Impressive from Marshall, who paddled it down to his foot. I know the EPL started this morning, and there's a fair bit of soccer going on in the goal square there. Over at Geelong, St Kilda have taken a 2-goal lead early on against the Cats, so 2 straight 12 goals to Max King and Cooper Sharman. And here at the Adelaide Oval, it is Port Adelaide by 6 points.
Arsenal didn't start the league this morning, did they?
No, Brentford did though. Drew gets the clearance for the power, heads to the left forward pocket, bouncing through the legs of the pack. Dixon tries to gather. He's up against Kemp, who's on him. They both put their head over the ball. Spills to Georgiades. Now to Fantasia. Central hand pass to Grays, wrapped up in the tackle. Got it back to Rosie, though. Slips as he kicks it and turns it over. The Blues escape danger. Walsh just kicks it into space outside of the 50. The Power do have numbers, but Cleary misreads the bounce of the ball. Rolls through him and over the boundary line to be tossed back in, right half forward for Port Adelaide. 1-1-7 plays one behind, approaching the 10-minute mark of the opening quarter on Grandstand AFL.
Tom Cleary back in, only after playing 10 games. Good to see him back to strengthen up the defence of Port Adelaide.
Just finally got a replay on that goal line work by Charlie Dixon, and the ball didn't cross the behind line, so a good call by the umpires. They were confident of that. Meanwhile, very confident, Aliir, who took a lot of intercept marks last week against Adelaide, has taken one this afternoon against Carlton. He goes back to Houston,
think it was 11 Crossy, wasn't it?
Well, it was 11 marks. I'm not sure everyone was an intercept one. So, meanwhile, as they've chipped forward, they've knocked the ball out of bounds. Carlton's defensive setup. Rosie tried to chip the ball forward, so it'll be thrown back in from the interchange area.
Lycett in front position, takes it out of the contest. A hand pass looking for Burne-Jones. Tunnel ball towards Rosie, turns it over though. Fisher can gather for the Blues. Back to Dow and then Murphy. Kicks up to left half forward, works well for his ruckman de Koning. Still far too out to score, but he has a runner coming off the bench in Nunes. Hands it out wide. Now into the 50 they'll go, Carlton. Casbolt's outnumbered. He had 3 defenders on him. Cleary's dropped the mark. Gets it back to Aliir, though. The Power can regroup. Jonas now back to Houston. Just kicks around the body errantly. Bergman can sit underneath it with Wines, who brought it to ground. Walsh overruns it for the Blues. Still inside 50 for Carlton. Finally, Rosie gathers a hand pass to Burne-Jones, the 1-2, and then to Houston. Kicks it out of the 50 finally for Port Adelaide. He's looking for Dixon. Again up against Wiedering. Couldn't gather cleanly. The Blues backman gathers, turns it straight over to Bergman. The Power continue to surge towards right half forward, and Kemp back with the flight takes the intercept mark for Carlton.
Shares it with Newman, who ran around the back. Now he's inside defensive 50. Nowhere to go. It wasn't a great kick across the goal face. It did find Wiedering, but on the bounce, Wiedering outside 50 was pretty good. He found O'Brien. So O'Brien out there in the sunshine on the eastern side of the ground.
Great kick.
Yep, opts to go short. Honey then wider. Carlton chipping it around, and Aliir almost picked that off. So they'll keep control of the ball, and Stoker will send the ball down to half forward now. Honey in a bit of space. They're moving it slowly but effectively at the moment. Right out on the far side of the ground. 6 points the margin in favour of Port.
Heads into the 50, Honey, and Casbolt got rid of Lycett but dropped the mark. Still in play in the scoreboard pocket. Hand pass comes back to Charlie Curnow. Kicks to the top of the goal square where Mitch McGovern is all alone. Left unattended. Mitch McGovern can take it. Couple of metres out from the goal line. This should be easy as you like. He comes around on the left and converts the first for the Blues. Scores level at 1-1-7 apiece. We've hit the 13-minute mark of the opening quarter on Grandstand AFL, and Mitch McGovern on return to the side has a major.
I couldn't see who was in the goal square. Ollie Wines just left him. He kept ball watching, got caught into the contest and left him in the goal square. And then Laddams was standing in the middle of the ground and just had no forethought to actually go and stand on him. So it was just a hack kick forward, really out of stoppage by Carlton. Can't see who the player was. Curnow really hit and hope, but Ollie Wines just can't allow, just walk into a contest and leave the opposition player standing in the goal square.
Mitch McGovern in his 4th game, injury prone, so back into the side today. But Brodie Kemper took a mark running back with the flight of the footy. He's a good size, starting in defence, 193 centimetres, 83 kilos. So got some filling out to do, but looks good.
Ball down in the middle, and Wines came out, gave a head pass to Gray, and then back to Wines, and then wide to Rosie, and he takes a bounce, and he's inside 50, and he hooks the ball back across the goal face and out on the full. He was just under pressure, just significant pressure too. And Wiedering will take the free kick for Carlton in the right back pocket. Eyes shielded against the sun as he tries to pick out somebody on that eastern side of the ground.
Finally heads to right half back. Casbolt far from home, went straight through his hands. Can't gather under congestion, has to wrap up his opponent. Ball comes out though, a 1-2. Walsh working with Ed Curnow. Now back to Kemp, the debutant. Sells some candy, gets around his opponent. Heads up to the eastern side. In front position, trying to gather it. In the end was Honey, but a free kick's been given. The push out to Darcy Burne-Jones. Port Adelaide with the free kick, centre wing on the eastern side. And Burne-Jones immediately looks sideways, didn't have any options, so he'll load up towards the 50. Dixon's on the arc, and it goes just a bit over his head and works perfectly for Jacob Wiedering, who takes the intercept mark. Just on Brodie Campo. It's a great story for his debut. So he was picked up in the first round of 2019, but actually did an ACL in his draft year and has had multiple injuries since then. So it's great that he's finally on the park.
On the park, Carlton doing well too. They've moved the ball to half forward through Walsh eventually. And they've got it back inside of McGovern. He's on his hands and knees, so he had to send it wide to Charlie Curnow. Inside 50, though, Curnow, bullet pass to the top of the square. Coming through, taking the ball off the pack was Houston. And then did he have prior opportunity? Yes, said the umpire. He was taken down in a really solid tackle by Kennedy. He meant business. And so from about 5 metres out, slightest of angles, in fact, the same angle that McGovern kicked a goal just a few minutes ago. Kennedy's going to have a look.
I couldn't have asked for a better start, Carlton. They've actually put the pressure on Port Adelaide. They were slow last week. They have tried to change that in recent time, but they've been really poor going at kicking efficiency at 38%.
Like McGovern before him, Kennedy just swings around on the left foot eventually and just hits it across the body for the goal. So Carlton take the lead again. It's 2-1-13 for the Blues. Port Adelaide 1-1-7, grandstand AFL at the Adelaide Oval. Your experts, Rod Jamieson and Scott Camporelli.
Yeah, well, you're right, Jamo. They're a little bit off, particularly defensively. And you touched on their kicking. They're not kicking it well at the moment. So that's twofold. One, it's either the options up the field or they're trying to do too much, or it's the pressure of Carlton. Carlton's pressure's been okay, particularly out of their back half. But going through the middle of the ground, they've been able to chip around and have some marks. So at the moment, Carlton have already had 16 marks. They've got to shut that down. They're playing too far off and giving him too much room. One thing Carlton can do is score. There's no question about that. And as a defender, Dan Houston, you don't turn back into the corridor in front of goals. Go boundary. There was actually a Port Adelaide player that could easily handball.
Great to have Carlton Premiership player Scott Camporelli alongside Adelaide Premiership player Rod Jamieson. In the middle, Laddams gathers the ball, hand passed it straight to O'Brien, who was wrapped up in the tackle and held. Xavier Dersma gives away another free kick. Lockie O'Brien for the Blues heads to the western wing. Picks out Nunes, who's open, and decides to go back into the square. Finds Stocker. Kicks it into the back of the man running through him. Plowman still works out, though. Ricochets to Nunes in front of the benches. Heads to left half forward for the Blues. Over their head of Betts. Bouncing favourably for Cleary. Hand pass back to Burne-Jones. Sold him into trouble. Betts paddles it down to Fisher, who takes a bounce in the left forward pocket. Runs to 10 and decides to dribble it to the goal line. Alia, the goalkeeper, just cuts it off and rushes it through. Minor score to the Blues. They're up by 7 now. It's 2-2-14 playing 1-1-7. 17 and a half gone in the opening quarter.
Well, the pressure's there, support's there. Handball receives 22-7, tackling 9-3 in favour of Carlton. So the pressure on Port Adelaide, they're really up against it at the moment in the first quarter.
Alia brought the ball in and they worked it across the ground off the marking contest. And then the kick from Bonner couldn't find Georgiades, and it's been turned over again. Inside the ball goes to Paddy Dow for Carlton. Inside 50 goes, looking for Curnow. Alia knocks it away, follows up. Murphy at the feet. He couldn't take it cleanly. Cleary came through. Good hand pass forward. Found Alia, gave it to Boak. Boak went wide with the kick. And just too high for Dersma, who was sitting out there between half-back and centre wing. Over the line, we'll get a throw in. And there is a contest. This is what we wanted to see, we hoped for, but didn't really expect. 7 points the lead for the Blues.
They look like a top 4 side at the moment and competing for second or top, as you touched on. Crossy, if a couple of outcomes fall their way.
Laddams wins the right tap. Xavier Dersma over the ball was wrapped up by a couple and a ball up to come. It is a very important game for Port Adelaide. Earlier today, the Western Bulldogs losing, and at the moment, Geelong is down by 19 against St Kilda. So they could move into top spot, but they're behind by 7 at the moment. Quick clearance for Carlton. Charlie Curnow's nudged out of it by Alia. No free kick. Intercept mark taken and the Power can regroup. Alia goes short to Bonner, still inside defensive 50.
He's in some form, isn't he, too, Alia?
Centres his kick to Wines. Plays on. Hand pass over the top to Burne-Jones, who fumbled it. Rolls into the square. The Blues have numbers. Nunes gathers a hand pass to Betts. Then Murphy. Back to Betts. Now here's Williamson. Goes for a run at centre half forward. Awful kick that bounces favourably for Curnow in the left forward pocket. Tried to get around Alia, who runs him down. Just hunted him earlier. Caught him in the tackle.
It was a poor inside 50 kick.
Yeah.
I mean, Curnow would be filthy. He actually did a number on Alia, to be fair. He lost contact with him. He doubled back. He gave him a lead up. It was just a really poor kick inside forward 50. And they're the things that cost you.
So free kick to Alia. He heads to the right half-back flank, and That's knocked out of playoff hands in the contest. Wines in front position. So boundary throw in left half forward for the Blues, up by 7, 2-2-14, plays 1-1-7. If you'd like to get in touch with us today, 0467 922 891. Let us know your thoughts and how you're feeling, especially Blues fans. I imagine it's a big day for you.
De Koning battling in the ruck against Lycett. Neither got a tap out as such. It was picked up by Kennedy there for Carlton, immediately swamped by a couple of tacklers. Ball to go in the air again from the umpire. Lycett had the better of that contest. Boak overhit it towards Wines, picked up by Fisher, inside 50. Well, he gave it to Charlie Curnow, 30 from goal. He took it on the bounce around the corner and away for the minor score. Chances for Carlton, they need to take them. They didn't that time. They move along to 2-3-15 to Port Adelaide's 1-1-7. We're through into time on in the opening quarter.
Zach Fisher had the opportunity to go on goal. Curnow had a little bit more space. Aliir really dropped off to try to read the play. The footy now held up on the half-forward line for Carlton. 11 inside 50s to 6 in this first quarter.
So Bonner went down the corridor. Ball up has been forced. Lycett taps it down looking for Drew. He couldn't gather. Boak tries to get boot to ball as well. Immense pressure from the Blues. Ball's still stuck in the centre square. Murphy finally rips it out. Got boot to ball towards the benches and paddled towards the line by Marshall. What does the umpire say? Boundary throw-in. So true centre wing on the western side. It is Carlton currently up by 8 points. Time on in the first. And boundary throw-in to come.
Murphy, Walsh, Kennedy, 7 disposals in this first quarter. Ollie Wines, 7. Aliir, 6.
The late news as well, Patrick Cripps out with a quad injury. Means Corey Durden makes his debut. And the Blues are still getting it done. Robbie Gray puts his head over the ball. May have copped one high in the contest. Ed Curnow, Mark Murphy jumping onto him. Ball up to come though. Still centre wing on the western side. Lycett again against De Koning. Gets front position. Tapped it straight down towards Boak, but Kennedy ripped it away. Kicks around the body to left half forward. Aliir was anticipating a bounce that didn't work for him. Puts his head over the footy. Now Houston comes to assist. Gives it to Bonner. Kicks flat down the line. Back to centre wing. Wiedering can cut it off for the Blues.
Gave it to Nunes by hand, and then he hopefully just sent the ball forward from the hand pass, and the hospital handball just sat up and was taken across the line eventually. So they're a bit lucky out of that, Carlton. It wasn't a tremendous attacking opportunity, but nevertheless, you're not going to go anywhere just handballing the forward in hope.
Wiedering's done well on Dixon early in this quarter, just getting to the football in front of him.
So off the ruck contest, bursting through after a couple of handballs was Burton for Port Adelaide. He sends it down to half forward, 2-on-1. Ladham's the one, and the two Carlton defenders knock the ball over the boundary line just on that arc of 50 at right half forward for Port Adelaide. Mark Murphy did notice he limped away from a contest about 60 seconds ago, but we'll keep an eye. He's still out there. Looks like he's shaken off whatever it was.
He's having a belter early. 7 disposals in game 300 and his final game as well. From the ruck contest, Lycett wraps up Dow. We got a hand pass away to Murphy. Now onto De Koning. Immense pressure from the power though. Walsh is wrapped up by Gray. Dropped it towards his boot. Did it touch it? Apparently it did. Rolls over the boundary line to be tossed back into play. Over at Geelong, the Cats are capitulating. 25 points to 0. 4-1-25 the Saints. Good
Max
start
King
for them.
Having another shot on goal here too, Aaron.
Boundary thrown once again. De Koning takes it out of the ruck. Hand pass forward for Walsh. The Blues through the western side have turned it over again. Bonner now to Burton. Skyward to the 50. Doesn't have a lot of distance. Butters tried to rise but was cut off by Stocker. Spilled to Wines. Hand pass into the 50 for Fantasia's a run down by Newman. Now Sard can gather for Carlton. Exits the 50 and using the body well as Cleary gets away from Casbolt. Takes the intercept mark on the logo western side for Port Adelaide.
Just slowing things down, Cleary. Now he's got the short option. Leading up was Amon. So Amon inside the centre square just on this broadcast side, and he just gets his kick away as he arcs around on the left foot before McGovern got him. He centred high and it's off the pack to the front. Boakes picked it up for Carlton. Tried to slip a hand pass. No success there. Stocker came through. There's a Williamson bounced out of there for Carlton. Thought he took one high. The ball's gone forward, picked up by Rosie. Hand passed it back to Bergman. On the angle, a snap from Bergman is excellent. So well down from half-back was Bergman. And he slotted through the goal for Port Adelaide. They're back within 2 points, 2-1-13. Carlton 2-3-15. And we're 25 minutes into this opening quarter.
Well, it hasn't been pretty, and the inside forward 50 entries from Port aren't great, but great effort by Connor Rosie. He went back with the flight, tapped it to his advantage over Mark Murphy, won a ground ball and then flicked it to Bergman, who just crept forward from that wing position and snapped it truly. So hard fought goal, but not an easy one at the moment. Port not quite in fourth gear at the moment.
When they haven't been on song, it is the likes of, say, a Rosie pops up and does a couple of things out of the ordinary, or kicks an extraordinary goal. Bergman, who's been classy since coming into this side this year as well. Just another tough in the pocket, over his left shoulder, really difficult goal. So they rely on the brilliance of one person just to keep them in when they haven't had it all their way.
Carlton by 2 in the middle. Drew got a hand pass to Bergman, tried to pop it over the top to Butters, but it's cut off by the Blues. Now Nunes can go high into the 50. Betts couldn't get a rise at it, was cut off. Aaliyah in front position brings it to ground. Casbolt puts his head over it, somehow pops out for the Blues. Quick gather, duck through a couple was Durden. The third tackle he couldn't get away from Aaliyah, and rolls through for a minus score. Durden nearly did something miraculous, got through a couple on debut, but couldn't get away from the showdown medalist. There's Carlton now by 3 points. 2-4-16 plays 2-1-13.
173 centimetres. He's smaller than Eddie Betts.
Be a battle with Callum Daniel, I think, to be smallest man in the game.
He ran through Aaliyah's legs.
From the kick in, it's ricochet away to Drew, and he gave it off to Houston. Here's a beautiful kick, no exception this time. He found Butters on centre wing. He's taken a bounce and then cut inside. Robbie Gray at half forward, gets the ball, sends it long into the forward pocket. Rosie was up, dropped it, umpire said free kick. And I think Rosie may have done something to his leg in that, possibly. Slow to get up, but he receives a free kick. He's got his knee strapped, and he's not back on the angle from what I can see. I think the umpire might be edging him around quite substantially as he goes back and he hugs the boundary line. The umpire is letting him.
Left ankle, maybe, just as he landed. As Geelong kicked their first goal, 2 crossing.
So Rosie comes in, he's able to crib a few more metres, put it across the goal face, and in the end it just sneaks in for the minus score for Port Adelaide. So by that margin they get a little bit closer. 2 points in favour of the Blues, who've been pretty good in this opening quarter at the Adelaide Oval.
As Jamo just said, it is the St Kilda up by 25 points, late stages of the first at Geelong, 5-1-31 to 1 straight 6. And earlier today, the Western Bulldogs losing to Hawthorn by 27 points. So if the Power can get up, there's a chance they could finish, or at least be first temporarily. Melbourne to play tomorrow.
Georgiades just, I think, slow to get up.
Oh, I think he's doing his laces. Seems to be all right.
Stood on the back of his boot, was it?
The contest as the ball cleared the 50 was knocked out of play. So a boundary throw-in to come left half forward for Port Adelaide. There's plenty of time to work with as well, still in this opening quarter. De Koning in front position, knocks it down to Walsh. Carlton heading to centre wing, turned it over though. Houston takes it on the chest, wastes little time. High kick into the 50 for the Power. It's knocked to ground. Boat trying to gather, flicked a hand pass out. Newman can cut it off though. Hand pass to O'Brien, then Williamson. Darts around Lysett, threw it on the boot. Bounced unfavourably for Bergman. He's got back up. Amon wrapped up in the tackle, dropped it. Walsh coming through for Carlton. His hand pass to turnover. Aaliyah now for the Power. Gives it to Gray. Back to Bergman from 55. He has a fumble. Regathers. Kicks into the 50 and cut off by De Koning. Stood his ground in the middle of the pack, and the Blues ruckman, the youngster, has it in defensive 50.
Handball to Sard. Sard thinks nothing on the eastern side. I'll come out to the western side, and he finds Plowman just inside the boundary near the arc of 50.
He very rarely misses, does he? He's always disposal. Really smart, Adam Sard.
Plowman drives a short pass to Williamson. The left-footer takes the ball, gets it way across the ground to Walsh. Near centre half forward. Forward hand passes he played on. Picked up by O'Brien. He goes down to half forward. It's taken there by Charlie Curnow. Wheels around on the right boot into the pocket. And he finds Casbolt, who got out the back of Aaliyah. And Casbolt takes the mark. Pretty severe angle. And about 35 metres out. Scoreboard pocket.
Well, Carlton, what they do well is they get speed on the ball, so they change the angle there. And then all the defenders, because Port actually play proactive defence, they don't actually play back shoulder, they play in front of their man to hope that there's pressure up the ground. But as soon as you see it gets into open space, the forwards of Carlton are out.
Casbolt, not a noted kicker of the ball, and that time he's across and it's knocked through by Lycett in the end for the minor score. Port Ruckman back on the behind post then. So Carlton edge away again to a 3-point lead, and we've gone through 30 minutes of the opening term.
Great to have your company this afternoon at the Adelaide Oval. Jonas clears the 50, Dixon leading out. Was spoiled from behind by Wiedering. Boundary throw in to come. The text line 0467 922 891. We've got a few to run through and we'll get to those at quarter time, especially yours, Ian. I know that's a frustration amongst a few today here in South Australia. So boundary throw in on the western side. It is Carlton up by 3 points. Tossed back into play. Lycett gets the spoil straight down towards Murphy, who fisted it back. Dersma can cut it off. Hand pass back to Burton. Kicks around the body for Port Adelaide, straight into the waiting arms of the milestone man, Mark Murphy. This will be disposal number 10, I think, for Mark Murphy.
Sam Walsh, he's already had 13.
300 and out for Mark Murphy. The former skipper heads into the 50 and hits up his ruckman into Koning, who takes the mark, 45 from goal, and a 45-degree angle to the left.
He's got some talent, hasn't he, too? Predominantly plays forward and does pinch it in the ruck. Left footer. Already this year, kicked 7 goals.
It's just, it's staggering, really. Scott Lycett's his direct opponent and does not have one arm across him at all in a one-on-one slow contest up the line.
So the 22-year-old Tom De Koning starts outside 50, kicks on the paint on the left. It's starting right, swinging further, and knocked through for a minor score. So Carlton move to a 4-point lead late stages of the opening quarter. It is 2-6-18 playing 2-2-14 on Grandstand AFL.
Koning had his headband knocked off there. The blonde-haired Bruce Dool. He wouldn't appreciate it, Bruce Dool, if he had his headband knocked off.
Oh, you can't bring him in that same conversation just yet.
Oh, just on the headband. Yeah. Anyway, Port Adelaide at the point of the centre square. They've got it from the kick-in. Willem Drew took a nice mark, gave it to Gray. He put it in front of the big ruckman, who's going to be run down straight away by Newman, who socketed it off the ground for his own advantage, and it went over the boundary line out on the eastern side, and he's picked up the ball, and the umpire's telling him to give it to Lycett, who didn't help things. Newman was smart there. He's just trying to slow the play down and give time for his fellow defenders to get back. And Lycett took the bait and pushed him over. Now he takes the kick, sends it to the top of the 50 and beyond. And there's the siren for quarter time as De Koning gets up and brings the wall to ground. So, very good opening quarter from the Blues. They had their chances, perhaps didn't take the most of them. 2-6-18 Carlton, 2-2-14 Port Adelaide.
Great start for the Blues here at Adelaide Oval. The goal scorers at the first break for the Power. Well, individual goal scorers all around, really. But for the Power, Bergman and Marshall. Meanwhile, for the Blues, it is Kennedy and McGovern. So great return for Mitch McGovern so far, the 3 disposals and the goal. And the milestone game for Mark Murphy, 300 and out. He has 9 touches alongside 2 tackles and a mark. Sam Walsh leading with 13 disposals for the Blues. Ollie Wines with 9 for the Power. It is Carlton by 4 points at quarter time, 2-6-18 to 2-2-14. Great to have your company on ABC Radio and ABC Sport Digital. This is Grandstand AFL.
Step back to the 80s.
Stand by control room.
Good evening and welcome to News at 6.
The world is changing.
And Mikhail Gorbachev.
Second explosion here on Russell Street.
TV news is changing.
60 Minutes are sending female reporters to war zone.
You're a war zone on 2 legs.
For a star newsreader and promising young reporter,
You know you're incredible.
it's a roller coaster ride.
Please don't tell anyone. Here we go again.
The Newsreader
Bloody magic.
premieres this Sunday on ABC TV and streaming on iView.
The 2021 AFL Premiership season on ABC Radio and on ABC Sport Digital.
Hand pass comes back to Charlie Curnow. Kicks to the top of the goal square where Mitch McGovern is all alone. Left unattended. Mitch McGovern can take it. A couple of metres out from the goal line. This should be easy as you like. He comes around on the left and converts the first for the Blues.
Coming through, taking the ball at the pack was Houston. And then did he have prior opportunity? Yes, said the umpire. He was taken down in a really solid tackle by Kennedy. He meant business. Like McGovern before him, Kennedy just swings around on the left foot eventually and just hits it across the body for the goal. So Carlton take the lead again. Williamson bounced out of there for Carlton. The ball he took on high. The ball's gone forward, picked up by Rosie. Hand passed it back to Bergman. On the angle, a snap from Bergman is excellent.
The 2021 AFL Premiership season on ABC Radio and on ABC Sport Digital.
For the second straight week, the underdog leads at quarter time at the Adelaide Oval. This time it is Carlton by 4 points over Port Adelaide, 2-6-18 to 2-2-14. It's a massive game for both clubs. For the Power, they could move temporarily into top spot. The Western Bulldogs losing earlier today by 27 points to Hawthorn, and Geelong currently down by 19 against St Kilda at quarter time there, 5-1-31 to 2 straight 12. So the door is open for Port Adelaide. They're not capitalising on it at the moment, and the Blues, meanwhile, hoping to send off their milestone man, 300-gamer Mark Murphy in fashion. Without Patrick Cripps either, who was a late out, the Blues currently up by 4 points at quarter time, 2-6-18 to 2-2-14. Aaron Bryans and Neil Cross with you alongside Carlton Premiership player Scott Camporelli and Adelaide Crowe Premiership player Rod Jamieson. The text line 0467 922 891. That's 0467 922 891. It's not the usual text line because there is another game on at the moment, and I've found a few texts from that one that I'll bring back over here as well. Nick in the Barossa Valley says, awesome weather for the game. As a Carlton supporter, I'm totally gutted there was no opportunity to get tickets to be there for Murph. To add insult to injury, the game isn't live on free-to-air TV. And that's the text that Ian said as well. He said, what sort of game are Channel 7 playing? Have we gone back to the 90s when we wouldn't get live telecasts unless West Lakes was sold out? Unfortunately, today's game is one of those off-Broadway delay ones that will go to air. I think it's 7 o'clock in Adelaide, but we will do our best to give you, paint a picture for you at least in terms of our radio craft for what's available, but unfortunately it isn't available on free-to-air today. Tim in Applecross also says, to get 300 games from a son of a gun says a lot about this former number one. With Daisy and Ellis, JK and Scott all up there with him near the top spot, we picked a beauty and we will miss Mark Murphy a lot. And also an unnamed texter says, neutral supporter here, early days in the game, I get it, but lots of Twitter comments last week about Port Adelaide not looking like a top four side. You've said it in your call today too. Are there any concerns for the Power? Scott Camporelli, Rod Jamieson, your opening thoughts on the quarter, and if there are really any concerns for Port Adelaide right now.
Well, I wrote down in my notes, probably about halfway through, is a real lazy start from Port Adelaide. And if I was Ken Hinkley, I'd be down there going, hey guys, we haven't quite come to play. Carlton have put some pressure on there. We'll give Carlton some credit in there. But they've given up 27 uncontested marks already. So there's no pressure on the ball, and particularly in the uncontested part of the game. They're getting smashed in there, particularly through the middle of the ground. Yes, they're winning contested ball, which is great, but as soon as the game goes into open field, Port are having no pressure on the ball at all. And we saw in there, and we've seen this year, Jamo, when we've watched Port games in general, if Port don't get pressure on the ball up the ground, their defenders can be exposed. And that's the concern for me at the moment. I think they can rectify it, and I think they'll have a realignment at quarter time. But for me, it was a lazy start by Port.
I think, and you've seen Charlie Curnow, you highlighted it, and late in that quarter, he's getting away from Aliir, he's working back. So everyone knows if you're going to go through the way through Port Adelaide's defence, if you can certainly go through his immediate opponent, you're half a chance. He's such a standout defender, intercept player when you just kick down the line or bomb it away. But I think I like what the energy that Carlton have brought. Sam Walsh has been a star since coming into the competition. Mark Murphy was spoken about for such a long period of time. Their tackling has been good. Their pressure's been good. Corey Durden, first game, 3 disposals, looks lively up forward when they've got it up there too. But really complimentary of the defence. You know, again, Brodie Kemp, first game. Wiedering's all over Dixon. Adam Sard is classy. Nick Newman, Williamson and Plowman. No, they're moving and running them with the football really well. And all right, I think to answer that question on the text line is that they are slow. They do look lazy, Port Adelaide, and right at the moment they don't look like a top four side, you know, trying to take number one or number two.
Carlton by 4 points. The second quarter underway. DeConing taps it down looking for Dow. He's wrapped up by Wines. Ball comes out. Quick clearance comes from Kennedy out towards the western side. It bounces through the logo. Amon's trying to chase it up against Murphy. They both jostle for position. Knocked out of play. It was Nunes who last touched it. And it will be tossed back into play. The umpires are coming together. They're not sure if it did come off the boot.
I think the umpire to the left of us said yes, it's out on the full, and the umpire to the right was about to signal just out of bounds.
So all three umpires come together, and we've decided to go for the boundary throw-in. Play it safe.
O'Brien, sorry, Aaron, has been another really good player for Carlton in this first quarter. William Drew was running with Sam Walsh. Now Boak's gone to pick him up.
Toss back into play. Laddams wins it against De Koning. Straight to Wines. Got a hand pass under pressure, but looking for Boak, who overran it. Flicked out for Carlton. Clean gather by Dow. He kicks around the body into the 50. Aaliyah only had eyes for the ball. Charlie Curnow had to turn his back to the flight. Aaliyah takes the intercept mark for the Power. Short chip over the top to his skipper and Jonas, who barrels it down the line to centre wing. Marshall knocks it to ground. Two Power players collide. The latter of those wrapped up in a tackle is poor Mitch Georgiades, who's last off the deck. Ball up to come on the logo western side. It is Carlton by 4 points. No change to the quarter-time score.
De Koning gets to the front. Wines middle of the pack. Kick just went straight up and down. I think it was partially smothered. Ed Curnow picks it up for Carlton. Shakes a tackle off the left foot. Just scrambles it down to Charlie Curnow. And Charlie Curnow immediately taken by Aaliyah, forcing a ball up right half forward for Carlton. Just on those first quarters for Port Adelaide. They're now 9 wins, 12 losses for the season. And they've got a winning record in every other quarter. Free kick off the ruck contest. De Koning into the back of Laddams. So Laddams at half-back left will take the free kick and drop it short for Houston.
Plays on quickly, Houston. Heads up to left half forward. Contest awaits. Georgiades got rid of one opponent in Plowman, but Wiedering coming across to assist. Knocks it over the boundary line to be tossed back into play. Left half forward for the Power. The major starts at the moment. Sam Walsh has 13 touches for the Blues. Mark Murphy and Matthew Kennedy with 9. For the Power, Ollie Wines has 11. Aaliyah with 8, and Travis Boak as well with 8. Dan Houston, Riley Bonner with 7.
Dixon looks slow. He looked slow last week and he looks slow again today. He's got his left knee heavily strapped, but Wiedering is all over him, just jumping off him and in that last contest hitting it out of bounds.
Carlton off the contest. They had it. Ed Curnow gave it away. Quick hands from a couple of Port players, including Wines. Ended up with Burn Jones. Goes into the forward pocket with a kick, and it's just knocked down in a tackle as Wiedering. He wanted to get it over the line. He was tackled by Dixon, who accommodated the wish. So the ball will be thrown in just about 5 or 6 metres around from the behind post in the left forward pocket for Port Adelaide. Dixon gets to the front of De Koning. Neither of them gets a tap. Ball ends up on the ground. Picked up by Newman. Just got a toe to it. Put it centrally. Wasn't the greatest of kicks. Picked up by Ed Curnow. Got it out of there, but not with the greatest of kicks again. It was Laddams who took it. Now he's called to play on. Laddams sends it back inside forward 50. Big leap. Looked like premature from Georgiades. It came off the pack and Sard rushed it through for the minus score for Port Adelaide. So 2-6-18 for Carlton. They haven't been fantastic, and Port Adelaide moving along to 2-3-15.
Over at Geelong, the Cats are fighting back. A 13-point lead to St Kilda, early stages of the second. Ball's held up on the eastern side here at Adelaide Oval. Ball up to come. The tackler, Xavier Dersma, the last man off the deck for the Blues is Lockie O'Brien, who's, Jamo said, had a great start to the game, but hasn't had a great year overall and might be playing for a contract. Ball up, comes out towards Lockie O'Brien, who's wrapped up by Boak, and once again a ball up to come closer to the boundary line. Former first-round pick, Lockie O'Brien, 2017, and out of contract this year. Now again off the ruck contest. Ed Curnow gets it to Matthew Kennedy. Now the Blues through their ruckman, De Koning. Just throws it on the boot around the body. Casbolt in front position. Tapped it down to Walsh. Flicks a hand pass out. Looking for Honey. Shrugged one tackle. Got it to Fisher. Over his head back to Honey. Trying to get away. Wrapped up in the tackle from Burn Jones. No free kick. Play on. Drew now with the ball. Kicks it back down the eastern wing for the Power. In front position, Marshall can tap it to Boak. Gathers inside the boundary line and kicks to right half forward, a bit too far wide. Out of bounds on the full. Free kick to Carlton at left half back. They're up by 3 points. They've travelled 5 minutes in the second quarter on Grandstand AFL.
Boak, of course, another 300-game veteran, playing game 303 this afternoon. Port Adelaide are in the gun at the moment as Plowman plays on, goes down to half forward. Casbolt got a hand to it, middle of the pack. Came down for Laddams, gave it back to Burne-Jones, forward to Jonas, wide then for Cleary for Port Adelaide. Off the back foot, he goes down the line. And coming from behind, Plowman just makes sure it goes over the line. Right half forward for Port Adelaide, out on the eastern side of the ground. 2-6 Carlton, 2-3 Port Adelaide. Grandstand AFL across ABC Radio and ABC Sport Digital.
So boundary throw in on the eastern side. De Koning up against Laddams once again. Laddams wins the tap down, went straight to Walsh though. Flicks a hand pass out, turned it over to Dersma. The power youngster shrugs off his opponent, kicks towards the 50. Beat the pack. The fall of it, Sard can run through. Shrugs one tackle but ran out of play as he did so. Boundary throw in to come just outside the arc, near the scoreboard pocket. And Port Adelaide's attacking 54 this term. They're down by 3 points. Just a reminder, the text line 0467 922 891. Luca from Largs messaged in on the other text line saying Charlie Dixon hasn't had a kick or handball but has recorded a contested possession. How is that possible? We'll have a look for you. In the meantime, tap down looking for Dersma. He's wrapped up by Kennedy. Ball again rolls over the boundary line to be tossed back into play. So how does that work, Campo?
Sorry, because he had a tackle.
There you go. The joys of statistics.
The answer.
The answer, Scott Camporelli.
So ball thrown back into play. De Koning off the back foot as well, goes down towards centre wing. Alir picks it up and then he hands it off to Amon, and then Fisher with a deft little kick as Amon dropped it. Carlton forcing the ball forward. On the ground now, Jonas fighting for it. He gave it to Houston by hand, who tried to give it to Boak. Walsh picked it up for Carlton. Fisher then received the hand pass down to Charlie Curnow. He's at half forward immediately, around on the right foot, sends it long, and a mark taken by Casbolt. Just got his man Cleary under the ball, and Casbolt will have a look at the goals from 25 out, 45-degree angle to the left.
Well, it's interesting, Jamo, because one of the things that Port Adelaide, when they lose, is contested possession. At the moment, they're bees to a honeypot, and Carlton's balance on the outside. And Sam Walsh, I've watched him for the last couple of minutes, he just works his tail off, and then he flicked the ball forward, and then Carlton had players ahead of the ball.
Casbolt, 11 games this season, only kicked 5-4, but he's kicked that one. That's the important one right now. Carlton just stretched the margin with their third goal of the afternoon. 3-6-24 plays Port Adelaide 2-3-15. Game high lead of 9 points for the Blues.
I don't mind the way they're actually playing at the moment, Carlton. They're actually getting around, they're throwing it around. And to your point, Campo, as well, I think Port Adelaide are just... They're sitting back, or they're getting really sucked in. I don't think they're working that hard. When they do have it in the back line, I think Houston's doing pretty well. Burton also doing well. But they don't have that run and that rebound, and they're not using it when they go through the middle of the ground. They haven't been able to do that in this first quarter and a half of football, where at Carlton, I think just the pressure that they're applying all the way around the ground at the moment, the energy that they're bringing is why they're in the position they are.
Rod Jamieson, Scott Camporelli, your experts. The Blues up by 9 points midway through the second. In the middle, De Koning gets it down to Kennedy. Now, forward hand pass works for Fisher, who shrugs two tackles, goes back to Williamson, who gets around Gray. Lysets Ginger in the middle for the power. Kick for the Blues up to left half forward works for McGovern. Takes the mark, wastes little time, heads to the top of the goal square. Casbolt crunches the pack. Hand pass flicked out for Honey. Dribbles it through in the goal square. Got forward of the ball and was left alone. And the Blues, with back-to-back goals in the space of a minute. Josh Honey gets his first. They're out to a game-high 15-point lead. Great result for Josh Honey. Great result for the Blues. 4-6-30. Plays 2-3-15. Jack Paqueta on the boundary.
Scott Lysett looking very proper here, still in the middle of the oval. It looks like he was tackled in that clearance there. He's coming from the ground, Pete Laddams, to take this ruck setup.
Well, Campo, both occasions, in the middle there, it was 3 Port Adelaide players to 1. It's exactly what you're saying, and then exactly the same up there, just inside or outside the square for Carlton.
Well, it was their work rate. I watched it live. Because they're a smaller forward line, they're actually moving continually, which for Port defenders who actually want to zone off, you actually lose. So what happens is they get drawn to the ball. So then there was 3 people that get drawn to the one contest. There's only one Carlton player, and those guys, Alir's players and Jonas's opponent, which is Eddie Betts, is all free at ground level. So that's what Carlton are going to try and expose Port with their taller defenders.
Well, De Koning's now reaching over the top and The clearances are coming for Carlton again. This one finds McGovern at half forward, and then he slipped out a hand pass to Curnow, and then it came back to O'Brien. His inside forward 50 ran a long way. Ed Curnow gets the return hand pass, and from about 40 metres gets it through for the minor score eventually. Yeah, I think it bounced right on the line and then up into the goalpost. So minor score for Carlton, 4-7-31. Port Adelaide under siege, 2-3-15, and we've travelled through 10 minutes of the second term.
Don't want to steal Jack's thunder, but they've got Lysett on the ground looking at his left knee.
Meanwhile, the power clearance out of the 50 is straight into the arms of Williamson for the Blues. Heads to the left forward pocket. McGovern marks inside the 50. He's about 48 out from goal, and he's pointed to home. Mitch McGovern thinks he has the distance, looking for his second major of the afternoon.
He has got the distance. He can kick this far. Port Adelaide just refusing to defend at the moment.
So Mitch McGovern starts at left half forward, ends up kicking from about 60, pops it to the goal line. Aaliyah comes across, spoils it, still in the field of play. Honey comes across, and again kicks another goal.
I reckon it's come off his above his knee. I don't reckon he actually kicked it.
He was unopposed in the goal square, went through and threw a boot at it, but did he actually connect?
You think he did?
It's off his heel.
He's had a fresh airy, but then touched it with the back of his foot, and that might be enough.
That is enough.
Yep. There you go.
This is ugly by Port Adelaide. They are far from where they need to be, and coming into today's game with the amount of quality out, 13th versus 4th, spoken about the opportunity for Port Adelaide. Jack Silvani out, Paddy Cripps out, Harry McKay out, Liam Jones out, Jack Martin out. Where they currently sit.
This is going to be a point.
Why is it going to be a point?
Might have touched the top of his knee.
Because it's hit his knee after he kicked the ball.
See?
The goal umpire actually...
The answer.
This angle, we can see the ball makes contact above the knee before crossing the back of the goal line. Decision on scoreboard.
Scott Camporelli 2, Rod Jamison 0.
Nothing's changed. Nothing's changed.
Minor score to the Blues, 17-point lead to them. Josh Honey nearly had 2 on the trot.
I haven't even entered the contest, have I? That was the first time.
You called it a goal.
I did call it a goal.
2-0.
So the Port Adelaide fans getting restless now. 15,000 in the house. Jonas with a long kick, and off the hands it comes as a free kick. Will go back in any case. Kennedy will take it for Carlton. He was taken from behind as he went for the mark. Now he's called to play on. Drops it high inside 50. Ed Curnow tries to get up from behind. That's his brother's job, but Ed tried at that time. It came off hands, and just around from the left-hand behind post, the ball goes out of bounds.
That's another example there. Curnow goes up, and it's 3-on-1 in that contest. 3 Port Adelaide defenders go up against 1. They just don't have the players and the smarts at the moment.
We'll get an update on Scott Lysett very shortly. In the meantime, Laddams taps it down, spilled towards Houston, hand pass back to Burne-Jones, looked to clear the 50 but didn't get enough of it. Kennedy now for the Blues, hands it back to Murphy. From 45, heads to the top of the goal square. Jonas spoils it down to Honey, gets it on the boot. This time he's got his second.
That's a goal.
Josh Honey with 2 in the second quarter. The Blues out by a game-high 23-point lead, 5-8-38. Plays 2-3-15, 14 minutes gone in the second. Jack Paquetta, how's Scott Lysett looking?
Well, there is some good news for Port Adelaide fans down here. Scott Lysett has been cleared of any damage to that left knee. He will take his spot in the rest of this game.
2-1.
They're in a world of pain, Port.
Aren't they?
I'm looking at the numbers now, and I know the numbers don't always correspond, but it is in this quarter here. Carlton have had almost 50 possessions, Port 25. They're getting belted around the contest. They're giving up uncontested marks. It's 4 inside 50s to 8 for the quarter. And to be fair, Port Adelaide are looking like that they're just rolling out on a Saturday afternoon, just hoping this is going to happen.
Contested.
And this is what happens in AFL teams. You can only be a little bit off, and a team that's well and truly underneath you can get hold of you.
Willem Drew comes out of the centre for Port Adelaide this time. He sends it down to half forward off hands, and there was holding there on Georgiades. According to the umpire, Plowman pleads his case, but it won't change the situation. 49 from goal, the man on the mark. Then Georgiades goes back. So sends it 25 from goal. Off the side of the boot slightly, Marshall flies. At the base was Dow. Got it out suspiciously, thought most of the crowd. Now it's Williamson who picks it up, and he's taken down by Wines. We get a ball up 40 from goal. Right inside the forward 50 for Port Adelaide. Centre clearances. Campo, if you can give me those in this game, because Carlton are ranked 14th for centre clearances at the moment.
Centre clearances, Crossy, 4-5 in favour of Carlton.
The Blues with 3 unanswered goals in this second quarter, and now inside Port Adelaide's 50. Casbolt taps it down, was cut off. Butters gets a hand pass back to Burne-Jones. Around the body, he was looking for Marshall. Reading it best, though, was Kemp. Spoiled it out to the scoreboard pocket. Georgiades can gather. Hand pass to Marshall, then Dersma. They go all the way back to right half-back. Clury now to Bonner. Heads back into the 50 for the power. Amon outmatched by Wiedering, who got up, spoiled it all the way out of the 50. That's golden fist material. Heads to the square. Murphy cuts it off for the Blues. He paddles it out. Heavily contested footy right now on the eastern side. Bonner trying to get through a couple. Gave it to Wines. Now Amon is run down by Durden. Only had eyes for the tackle. Spills to Dersma though. From 48, he'll head towards home for the power. Bouncing near the goal line and then sprayed left off the bounce. Ends up being a minor score for Port Adelaide. So a 22-point lead to Carlton. 5-8-38 plays 2-4-16. Approaching the 17-minute mark over at Geelong. 20-point lead to St Kilda. They're approaching time on there. 7-2-44 Geelong, 4 straight 24.
Newman plays on from fullback, goes long out onto this broadcast side of the ground, right on the boundary. Bergman picks it up, he's tackled straight away. Spews loose towards Houston, or Laddams rather. Now it's Houston with the ball from the hand pass. He goes long and deep looking for Curnow. Wiedering knocks it away at the front. Picked up by Marshall. Skills for a big man off the left foot. Dribbles it through. Brilliant finish. Marshall has 2 for Port Adelaide. They creep back. 3-4-22 plays Carlton. 5-8-38. 17 and a half minutes second term.
It's pretty impressive for a big bloke just to get down like that on his non-preferred. First time, then off balance, dribbled it through. Wiedering again, just beating Dixon hands down. Saad just playing well and truly off. Good goal.
Well, and they needed that, Port, to be fair. I know that's probably an obvious statement to make, but they just looked at sea. They virtually got some field position there. They won a contest, and your point's right. Wiedering's had the better of Charlie Dixon, but I love the fact that he just brought that was his hand that just brought it to the front and square, which all coaches would say forwards get to that front of that contest, don't let it go over the back, and then Marshall gets reward for running and getting to that spot. But terrific finish for a guy of his size.
On the text line 0467 922 891, Lively Lizard in regional South Australia says, I'm also upset that the game is not on TV. Thank goodness I have the auntie. Well, we're glad to be with you. As Amon gets the centre clearance for the power, a bit too short for Georgiades. Bounced unfavourably for him. The hand pass, though, cut off by the power. Boak wrapped up in a tackle. Held up 35 from goal. May have been dangerous as well. The umpire behind players called it. And as a result, Travis Boak will receive the free kick against Adam Saad. He'll go back from 30, slightly right of centre, and have a shot on goal.
I think that's a really soft free. That is a great tackle. Wrapped him up, couldn't do much more, swung him around, and it wasn't malicious or the intent wasn't to drive him into the ground. That is a really soft free. Carlton are unlucky.
So Travis Boak, the 33-year-old, starts on the arc, kicks from 40, leaning back, easy as you like. Travis Boak gets a second goal for the power in this term. That margin just becoming more and more achievable. A 10-point game here at the Adelaide Oval. It's the Blues 5-8-38, Port Adelaide 4-4-28. Time on in the second quarter on Grandstand AFL.
Well, in the last 3 or 4 minutes, we spoke about when Honey just kicked that previous goal about getting smacked around the contest. They couldn't get their hands on the ball through the middle of the ground, and they couldn't get the ball inside forward 50. The last 3 minutes, it's completely swung back the other way. So I guess in this modern day game where with decisions being made, you take your chances, and to Port, that's certainly got them back in the hunt of the game, which they needed to.
I spoke earlier about a couple of players, just individual efforts that turn it or get Port Adelaide going. Bergman done that in the first quarter, and then you just find in this quarter you've seen Marshall with that left foot goal and then another follower.
Carlton through Dowg at first possession, slipped the hand pass, missed his target, picked up by Dersma for Port Adelaide, goes long. Ball off hands, came to Sard, had to give away a hand pass. It was picked up by Amon. Eventually it finds its way to Rosie. Then Marshall. Marshall looks centrally. He's on the boundary and he finds Lysett. Middle of the ground by himself.
It's a good kick.
Yeah. 25 metres out.
Really smart. Really smart. He's having a day that probably he needs, to be fair, Marshall. There's a fair bit of competition up there for that third tall spot. It's kicked 2 already, and that's just great composure. I love seeing that from particularly a forward. Most guys will probably blast away, have a shot, and don't do the team thing, but that was brilliant.
Lysett in his third season at Port Adelaide, having gone through 75 games across with the Eagles. In he comes and sprays well to the right. Just sneaks in for the minus score. Only just.
Handball.
Yeah.
Ruckman should handball.
Call him out.
Carlton by 9 points.
Down to Jack Buchetta on the boundary.
15,000 supporters allowed here in the house today. They're finally awoken from their slumber. It's been a very slow start to the game, but they're finally getting the power chant going.
So the power cut off Carlton's exit from the 50. Boak gets a hand pass towards the square. Didn't sit for Bonner, but Houston's there to assist. Shrugs the Murphy tackle. Heads to the scoreboard pocket for Georgiades. Gets away from the first game of Kemp. Takes the mark, tight angle to the right, 25 from home.
I really liked his work rate then too. He actually was in a contest about 70 metres out from their goal. The footy went back in. It then came out, but he just took off. Kemp had to go with him, and he made some space and ultimately ends up with it.
So Mitch Georgiades, 30 goals, 16 for the year.
Run down and ask Eddie what to do in his pocket.
Banana.
Very tight angle. He'll start on the paint. Comes in, puts it on the right towards home. Oh, that's something special. Mitch Georgiades sneaks it through from the tight angle. Port Adelaide, 3 straight goals. Back down to a 3-point game. 5-8-38 Carlton. Port Adelaide 5-5-35. 22 minutes gone in the second. Over at Geelong, 14-point game there. St Kilda leading the Cats 7-2-44 to 5 straight 30.
Well, they flipped it on its head. It was Carlton's game, particularly in that first, what are we into the quarter, first 10 minutes, really, to be fair. And then Port have dominated, really. Carlton just haven't been able to get their hands on the ball. They haven't been able to get it past centre. And it started with some centre bounce clearances. So after the Honey goal, all of a sudden Port actually gets some momentum. That's their third goal in probably 5 or 6 minutes of the game and dominated field position.
They kicked 1 goal last week in the first quarter and then 3 behinds in the second quarter against Adelaide. So you've got to give respect to the opposition, Adelaide and Carlton today, but they're starting well and truly get on top.
Willem Drew again. Gets the centre clearance. Gives it off to Burn-Jones, who sends it inside the half-forward line. Ladham's reached down, got it. Some sort of hand pass. It's ended up on the ground again, picked up by Fantasia. He was robbed of it by Kennedy. Kick was smothered. Curnow Ed sent it forward. It's on centre wing now, but Port Adelaide chain up their hand passes. Burn-Jones goes to Burton, coming off half-back, looking wide for Dersma. And Dersma in a stiff contest with Nunes. They finally get it out. And they get it forward again. Burton with a hand pass over the top finds Wines. He goes back to Dersma. Finally some space. His kick inside 50. And it was brought to ground by the Carlton defenders. Dow picked it up. Quick hand pass away. And they work it to Nunes, who's going to try and get it beyond centre wing.
Just barrelled it down the line and it ended up working well for Fisher, who continued the flow up to right half forward. Port Adelaide were out, had the outnumber rather. There on Eddie Betts, and it works to their advantage. They received the free kick. Tom Jonas sends his kick to Zach Butters at centre half back. Called to play on. Just races away and heads back to the western side. Marshall rising in front, beats Kemp and keeps going. Takes the mark, spins into the 50, heads for Boak, coming across Plowman, knocks it to ground. The Blues through Williamson, paddle it to the boundary line. They want deliberate at the Adelaide Oval. They're going to get it. Williamson came across far from the left forward pocket, paddled it to the line. And as a result, Travis Boak receives the free kick.
How many free kicks do you reckon you would have given away playing down there? I mean, it was the old day was the boundary's your best mate.
They need to wear noise-cancelling headphones or something like that, don't they, when they come here?
So Travis Boak on the tight angle is going to have to run around on his right. He's about 25 to 30 from goal. Kicks right on the paint. It's curling, but just not enough. Stayed right, minus score for the Power. 2-point game. 5-8-38, plays 5-6-36. Carlton are up, but they're just hanging on at the moment, late stages of the second quarter.
12 inside 50s this quarter, Port Adelaide. Carlton the only 6.
Wiedering the long kick from the goal square. Kemp made a good tackle for Carlton. And Amon just got the ball away and over the boundary line. So we'll get a throw in about 60 from the goal face. Port Adelaide just trying to, well, they have steadied things down after they trailed by 23 points after the 14-minute mark of this quarter. They slowly whittled it away off the ruck contest. Comes to Butters from Wines, and then Butters just hooks the kick long and strong, and Laddams had it twice. Boak had it off his hands. He gave it to Fantasia, and that's all she wrote. Fantasia with a nice goal. They can thank the 300 gamer Travis Boak. Mark Murphy might have started well in his 300th game, but Travis Boak is coming on strong now. It's Port Adelaide 6-6-42. They're back in front. Carlton 5-8-38. 4-point margin in favour of the Power.
Well, this is what happens, Jamo. Carlton can't get any field position, so they throw an extra one up around the stoppage. And they leave a Port loose defender, whether that be Lear or Jonas. So they can't actually get the ball ahead of the ball because there's too much density. So it forces Carlton kick the ball out. But what happens is they're doubling down at the moment because Porter gets smacking them around the contest as well. So they're not actually getting any field position. But, I mean, we talk about the tools. Laddam's contest there, that was pivotal once again in terms of Port being able to get another shot on goal.
Aaron Bryans, Neil Cross, Scott Camporelli, Rod Jamison with you. It's currently the Power up by 4 points in the middle. Carlton have numbers. Noons with a hand pass to Fisher. Sold him into trouble though. Amon got him, dropped the ball. No free kick. Still contested. Rosie flicks a hand pass out for Amon. He's nearly got Fisher running him down. Got it away though. Boak under pressure from Sard turns it over. Carlton now through the square. Kick to the centre circle. McGovern marks unopposed. Wheels around and heads to the 50. Leading out is Betts. He's hit him, but Jonas does enough to put him under pressure and knock it to ground over the boundary line. It'll be tossed in on the arc in the left forward pocket for Carlton. They're currently down by 4 points after leading by 4 at quarter time. They kicked the first 3 of this second quarter, and Port Adelaide have taken control since.
3 disposals to Eddie Betts. They all came in the first quarter. Hasn't touched it in the second.
Ball back into play. Ed Kerner off the ruck contest, and then a little chip for Eddie Betts, who on cue takes a mark inside 50. Little chip kick coming there. I think it was Stocker who got it in the end.
Whoop.
And now he's handballed it off, and Kennedy goes bang from about 50, gets it all the way to the square. Aaliyah nudges his man under the ball and takes the defensive mark for Port Adelaide in the left back pocket. Quick to dispose of it out to Amon, who's taken the mark, and then down the line he goes with a 25-metre pass to Rosie. He stands outside the boundary line at left half back for Port.
It was never his distance, Eddie, too, was it? 35, 40 out. Always looked to hand it off, couldn't make the distance.
He was looking for Brodie Smith.
Rosie heads down the western wing. Off hands, Kennedy over the ball, couldn't gather. Gray just throws it out, I reckon. No free kick. Marshall coming through, paddled it to the opposition. O'Brien to Sard, now kicks to the centre circle to Ed Kerno. He'll mark true centre. Continues to run though and heads to the left forward pocket. Alir's actually leading out in front of Charlie Kerno and takes the mark for the Power at right half back. He's a new favourite for the Power fans in attendance. 15,000 in the house. The new showdown medalist has been important for them so far. In defensive 50, he goes back to Bonner and now Butters.
Easy to say. Charlie had to run forward. He's got to come forward as opposed to going sideways. Alir's got the speed, and when it goes deep, he's just got the body to be able to push him under.
Port Adelaide worked it sideways. They've come out to this broadcast side of the ground, found Burn Jones, the reigning best and fairest. Down the line he goes with his pass to Marshall, who goes back centrally to Logo on centre wing, finds Burn Jones. He goes across the centre square. Wasn't a great kick. Jonas got a hand on it. Now Butters a little bit of twinkle toes. He gave it back to Byrne-Jones, who gave it back then to Aliir, and then Aliir goes down to half forward, and they've moved it out to the eastern side. Fantasia comes forward and takes the mark. It's Port Adelaide by 4 points.
Fantasia centres his kick to Butters. Flat kick into the 50, hits his ruckman Lysett. Takes it on the chest, 40 from home, straight in front.
Well, and we spoke about Port's kicking efficiency in the first quarter, going at 75% this second quarter. They're just changing the angles. Carlton, the biggest difference at the moment, they've now dropped their pressure on Port Adelaide in terms of being able to make them make a decision quickly, and now they're just toying with them, to be fair. Port are just showing a lot more composure with ball in hand, changing angles and finding uncontested marks.
So Lysett had a knee concern at the start of the quarter, but he's back out there, shooting for goal from 45 over the goal umpire's hat. Scott Lysett converts. Port Adelaide with a run of 5 straight goals. They're up by 10 points. 7-6-48 plays Carlton's 5-8-38. 31 minutes gone in the second quarter on Grandstand AFL. Over at Geelong, half-time there. St Kilda leads the Cats by 6 points. 7-2-44 to 6-2-38. Earlier today, Hawthorn defeating the Western Bulldogs by 27.
They were kicking at 49% in that first quarter, so a really big difference, isn't it, too? And
well, that's the pressure, Gemmo.
Yeah.
I mean, what Carlton did is what Port Adelaide are going to have to deal with when the finals come around. Yeah. So Carlton clearly aren't quite at that level right at the moment, but when they come up against the Bulldogs next week and when they move into the finals, that pressure is going to go up. So that kicking efficiency has to continue to keep improving.
Lysett back in the centre against De Koning. Umpire said that's okay. As it, the bounce went a spray, and De Koning got the clearance away, but it was marked there defensively by Byrne-Jones for Adelaide. Sends it out wide looking for Gray, who just smashes it back with his hand to Bergman, and then Boak tries to hand pass over his shoulder, and it's knocked forward by Sard, overrun by his teammate in McGovern, and then knocked over the boundary line by Byrne-Jones. So we get a throw in left half forward for Carlton. Late in the second term, 10 points the lead for Port Adelaide.
I'd take Adam Sard in my team every day, I reckon, just in a back pocket. I think he's could be tighter, but his composure and skill level disposal is good.
From the boundary throw, and it was tapped down to Walsh, who heads to the left forward pocket. Curnow juggles it. Nearly looked like he made a mess of it. With his left hand, he paddles it back in. Takes the mark, tight angle, 10 from goal. Charlie Curnow wastes little time, runs around on the right and misses to the left-hand side. Minor score to the Blues. Does break a run of Port Adelaide scoring since the 17-minute mark. We're now at the 33-minute mark of the second. The Power up by 9 points off that behind. So 7-6-48 to 5-9-39.
Burton brings the ball back in for Port Adelaide. Wide out. He finds Bergman just outside a defensive 50 for Port. Inboard, he had 2 to choose from, and he hit it between them. As a result, Jonas has to go and fetch it. Bonner was in there as well. Finally, it came to Burton. He comes out to this broadcast side of the ground. De Koning went up, almost took the mark. It's going to be allowed to play on now because Walsh got it to Ed Curnow, went long to the goal square. Charlie Curnow went up. Umpire said that was okay. The interference from in the marking contest by Jonas. And then Bergman and Aliir, who took it off that contest, managed to get it to Boak, and he takes the mark just outside defensive 50.
Well, it was actually McGovern. He probably had a reasonable case, to be fair. There was all front-on contact.
Boak to centre wing on the eastern side off the contest. Is brought to ground. Fantasia can gather on the run. Bursts away from Murphy. Takes a couple of bounces. At 45, he'll centre his kick towards home. It just beat Dixon.
Down the ground.
There's a free kick coming.
Yep, it was pushed in the back after he'd kicked it.
So Fantasia got away. Stocker ran him down and nudged him as he kicked it. And as a result, Port Adelaide, through Charlie Dixon, will receive it in the goal square for a gimme goal in the late stages of the second quarter.
Aaron, what is that?
The Adelaide Oval staff have kindly delivered me my sausage roll for half-time.
There's 3 other teammates in here.
Selfish.
You got to put your requests in early, Jamo.
Selfish.
Network, make some contacts.
Can you chop that up, please?
Sharing is caring in the ABC Sport Box.
Clearly not.
Charlie Dixon from 20 out. Should be a gimme. Converts. So Charlie Dixon gets his first of the afternoon. Port Adelaide running away with it in this second quarter a little bit. 6 unanswered goals for the Power. They now lead by 15 points. 8-6-54 to 5-9-39. 35 and a half gone in this second term on Grandstand AFL.
Well, a 6-goal turnaround and a 6-goal quarter. Carlton had the first 3 on the board, and you think, here we go, they're away. But just as we've highlighted all through this second quarter, they've just lost their way a little bit, Carlton. The senior players, the leadership, they haven't really got much of the football. Ed Kernow's got 11, Walsh has got 9, Kennedy's got 9, but they just haven't applied the pressure. They haven't used the football as well. They haven't put it deep into their 50, and they haven't put it to the advantage. And can you just stand up to Aaron to see if your legs work, please?
36 minutes now ticked over in this second term. And a bad bounce this time is rewarded with a second go by the umpire. Not happy with that bounce. The previous one, De Koning, was well advantaged. Now it's thrown up now. De Koning with the flip over, but Port Adelaide first there. Lysett is opposing ruckman. Wines, Drew, and then coming off the back end of the square, Burton sends it wide for Port Adelaide. It's picked up just inside the boundary by Amon. Is there time for Port to get another one? Hand pass off from Boak straight away to Burton, running off the left foot inside 50. Ball comes off hands. Will there be another opportunity? It's picked up by Butters. Inside he goes with the kick, but his kick wasn't effective, and as a result, it was Kennedy who went back there, took the mark, and he'll see our time, I think, to the halftime.
So after a great start for the Blues, they let it go in the back half of that second quarter. It's Port Adelaide now leading by 15 points at the major break. 6 unanswered goals to conclude the second term. 8-6-54 to 5-9-39. Carlton will be ruining the opportunities they had. They led by 4 at the first break. They kicked the first 3 of the second term, and since then it was all Port Adelaide. The goal scorers at the major break: 2 to Marshall, singles to Boak, Fantasia, Bergman, Georgiades, Dixon and Lysett. Meanwhile for Carlton, 2 to Honey, who's had 2 in every game he's started this year, and singles to Casbolt, McGovern and Kennedy. The Blues rolling without Patrick Cripps today, who was a late out for them. Mark Murphy in his 300th and final game for Carlton as well. And Eddie Betts, in what might be his last game at the Adelaide Oval, has been quiet for the Blues. Port Adelaide leading by 15 points at the major break. The text line, if you'd like to get in touch, 0467 922 891. Plenty of you letting us know you're disgust that Channel 7 is not airing this game live. It will be in delay at 7 p.m. Here in South Australia. But we will provide you, obviously, the live commentary on ABC Sport, as always, for every game. And if you do want to hear the other game on at the moment, Geelong and St Kilda, you can jump on the AFL app and there'll be a stream available for you there. It is the Saints up by 6 points. And earlier today, Hawthorn defeating the Western Bulldogs by 27 points. So the door has opened up. Port Adelaide could move into top spot if they continue this momentum. Scott Camporelli, Rod Jamieson, your thoughts on the opening half?
Yeah, well, it's probably a game of 2 quarters. I know it's half-time, Jamo, but Carlton were all over Port in that first quarter. And as we spoke about, they were getting beaten around the contest. They were lacklustre in way they wanted to defend. Carlton were able to change angles on them and get uncontested mark chains and get some easy forward 50s, and they didn't want to defend Port. They had a reset at quarter time, which was probably always coming. I'd love to hear what Ken said at quarter time, just in terms of, was he measured or was he a little angry around how they went about it? Then the first 5-6 minutes of that quarter, Carlton got on top again, and we're sitting here going, wow, this could be catastrophic for Port in terms of their finals campaign. Then they went back to the middle. Honey kicked that goal, went back in, and then it was Port Adelaide domination really from there. They got their clearance game going, their ball movement, uncontested marks. They started running. They started connecting through the middle of the ground. They didn't allow Carlton any opportunities ahead of the ball. He dominated field position, and they defended better. So it was a complete flip from the first quarter and 10 minutes, to be fair. And that's why I guess Port sit where they are. They've played, to be fair, 15 minutes of footy, and they've just gone whack, and all of a sudden they're back in front by the 15 points or whatever it is for the 15 points at half time. So I'm just not sure that's what they would have hoped for coming in to make sure this is a finals dress rehearsal. But they've got the game back on their terms now. It was always going to be a challenge for Carlton. Can they keep the level? And the level's dropped. And that's why Port Adelaide have been able to, wrestle back the momentum of the game.
And Scott Lycett hasn't been outstanding, but he's starting to get on top. De Koning's actually done well in the ruck, getting his hand to it. Travis Boak has worked his way into the game and started to pick up. Ollie Wines has had a lot of the football. In the first quarter, I didn't really feel he had an impact, and I had to have a look to see how many disposals he did have, and he'd had quite a few, but they weren't damaging, and we were talking a lot about, which you've just highlighted, that Port Adelaide were. But Lycett's kicked 1 goal once, so he's putting pressure on Tom De Koning when he's going deep and making the young lad work, and you either make a decision to go right down deep or you stay with me, and there's been a couple of occasions where he could have kicked 2 goals. The first one almost went out on the full, but I think everything you've highlighted, the disposal of Carlton has dropped away. Some individual performances are good, particularly those in defence, and we've highlighted the midfield of, Walsh continues to just he's a prolific ball winner. Kennedy, you touched on a cross, he probably hasn't had his best season, but he's going okay. Fisher as well. Ed Kerno's worked his way into the game. Charlie is the one for me. Again, it's the disposal. You've got to rely so heavily on how it comes in, and they just haven't put it to the right positions when they have gone forward. And Alia again is dominant. And what you have seen in that second quarter was Port Adelaide have come through the middle maybe on 4 to 6 occasions, and Ryan Burton has been the player that they go. He kicks out, uses the football well. He's done some follow-up work to put it. He just recently then went in on the left side, but just the quality of the ball use. Houston is another one that uses the football really well from defence. So we thought it might be a significant margin again before the game. Credit to Carlton. They started well. They have to reassess now at half-time and come out and really apply the same pressure. Otherwise, this game can really open up.
So the major stats at half-time. Sam Walsh has 22 touches. Matt Kennedy, 18 for the Blues. For the Power, Travis Boak with 18. Ollie Wines with 17 for them. And as I mentioned, the goal scorers, 2 to Marshall for the Power, for the Blues, 2 to Honey. The text line 0467 922 891. Grant in Waterloo, Sydney, who's a regular texter's messaged in and says, G'day, Saturday Arvo team, enjoying the call as per usual. Tasmania should have had a team before any move and expansion team occurred. I do agree with you there, Grant, and it's been interesting to see the fallout of the Colin Carter report. This morning, Richard Goyder, who's the chairman of the AFL, actually spoke to Clint Wilden on Sports Talk, so the full interview was available online there, and one of the key quotes from that Richard actually said in that discussion was, I actually think the Carter report is an important and positive step forward for Tasmania, and with good we'll get there. But he also said that Tasmania hasn't produced the sort of talent we would have liked in recent years, and they are concerned about that. So the full interview available online. Just head to the ABC Sport website and go find Sports Talk there to hear that chat with Clint Wilden. But certainly a lot of fallout on it. I didn't actually get the chance to ask you about it this morning, Campo. Did you have a chance to read Colin Carter's report?
No, I haven't flicked through it page by page, Aaron.
Did you see the summary at least?
I do have a day job as well that I need to address, but I mean, that was pretty obvious, the three options. The 3 options, I mean, that was clearly, but yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, as I said, I haven't put enough effort in to actually find out the finer details, but, from the outside, I'd probably be a little bit biased and would like to think that Tasmania get their standalone licence. I think that would be great for footy. I think that would definitely make it a national competition. I can't see, just talking off the cuff, I can't see a Melbourne team or another team moving there, and I just don't think they'll have the support of the Tasmanian people if that happens, would be my initial feel, Jamo. What do you think?
No, I saw some commentary today, I think, posted. It was around either the Tassie government or they're going to apply pressure, or they're almost going to revoke if they can't get their standalone licence, then they won't pursue it or allow it, I think it was. But look, I think it's a really difficult topic, one being that we're removed from other clubs, and I feel the Kangaroos, there's always sort of been talk around their position and their supports and their commercial support and where they sit, that they might be the team that either goes there or goes north. Outside of that, I'm going to find it difficult to find a team from scratch to be able to drop into Tassie to be able to then get the quality and to compete on a regular basis. Not, like similar to GWS, they're not going to sort of, a new startup franchise is not going to have that significant impact, I don't believe, with the quality if you were to do that in Tassie.
I really liked the report. I thought it laid out all the facts and the stats and the data that was available, and unfortunately it doesn't actually give us an answer, but at least we have the foundation of what to work with. It's up to the AFL now to make a decision, and unfortunately, from the sounds of things, it's going to be a while away. But you're right, Jamo, Tasmania have essentially said that they're only going for option 1, and that's the 19th team, and they won't answer anything else. So.
And so they should. Why not? Like, if that's the ultimate for them as a state, and I guess they're looking to appease their state and their people. So you can sit here and say, Hawthorn have got games there and North Melbourne have played their games there, but to have their own team, and they are a footy state, to be fair, and there's been some great talent that's come out of Tasmania. So, Crossy, you don't agree?
The only thing I would say with this, though, like Colin Carter is an enormously respected gentleman across all football. If you bring this back to like another code, so bring it to cricket, there's been 2 reports similar like that about the quality of Saka cricket. One in 2011 and only one done about a year and a half ago. The 2 reports say the same thing. The governing body needs to make the decision and have the proverbials to be able to do it, So, that's taken 11 years to get to that point, and there's still no decision on the cricket side of things. It's the AFL that's ultimately got to make this decision. There are 3 options, and they're probably all where we thought they were going to land. A decision needs to be made.
Slightly different, though, because the SACA doesn't have absolute rule, from what I understand, about closing down clubs. They can encourage, and that's the problem with Southern Districts and the amalgamation with Adelaide, getting drawn into arguments that perhaps some of our listeners are not interested in.
But to your point, Christy, they haven't actioned it. They've sat on it, and it's prolonged, where they've been told what the outcome or what they need to do to get the desired state, but they've just sat on their hands and hadn't done anything.
Well, they haven't changed their constitution in the SACA's case. The AFL, though, does have an opportunity to make a decision.
But this has been going for quite some time too, hasn't it? This discussion.
It has, but why I raised my eyebrows when you mentioned the talent coming out of Tasmania, how much real talent has come out of Tasmania in the last 10 years? I mean, they have decimated, along with the AFL leaving them to flounder, their junior programs and their senior football. We've seen the statewide competition diluted, then they had went back to north and south, and now I'm not exactly sure where they are right now. So they've got lots of problems themselves internally, and yet they're putting up their hand and saying, no, we're all sweet, we've got so much talent here.
Point taken, but if the AFL are prepared to invest the same sort of money that they have with GWS and Gold Coast, I'll guarantee there'll be more talent coming out of Tasmania than what there will for the non-traditional football states.
But they'll do it like all those franchises. They've never taken all the talent out of those markets either, have they?
Oh, no.
So you're going to take it from all around Australia and then you're going to build it up in time. So,
we could debate this endlessly.
Totally. I think it's almost worth their standalone.
Your sausage roll's getting cold, Aaron.
I just got to wrap this up. It's been sitting there for a while.
On purpose.
Forget about the news. You just want to get the sausage roll.
All right, that's enough. Let's get back to the game. Port Adelaide leading Carlton at the half-time by 15 points. It is sausage roll time, so we will depart you very shortly. The text line, if you'd like to get in touch, 0467 922 891. The other game at the moment, St Kilda leading Geelong at half-time by 6 points, 7-2-44 to 6-2-38. Pleasure to have your company here at the Adelaide Oval. The second half coming up shortly on ABC Radio and ABC Sport Digital, but it is time to get the latest from the ABC Newsroom.
ABC News with Satyam Weinstein. Regional New South Wales will join Sydney in lockdown from this hour. The stay-at-home orders commence from 5 p.m. and will last at least 7 days. Metropolitan Sydney has been in lockdown for 7 weeks. Tighter COVID restrictions will be enforced across Greater Sydney following a record 466 new coronavirus cases. Danuta Kazaki reports.
New South Wales Premier Gladys Berejiklian.
And the case numbers overnight are extremely concerning. We cannot see this trend continue.
She says the main suburbs of concern remain in Sydney's west and southwest.
Blacktown, Doonside, Mount Druitt, Merrylands, Guildford and Auburn.
The Premier says everyone across Greater Sydney will be limited to exercising within 5 kilometres of their home. From Monday, there will be 500 extra Australian Defence Force personnel helping New South Wales Police. 4 people have died, including a woman in her 40s in palliative care, a man and a woman in their 70s, and a man in his 80s.
The number of COVID-19 cases in the New South Wales Hunter region's been corrected, with 13 recorded in the 24 hours to 8 p.m. last night. It was earlier reported that there were 16 new cases, but 2 have been retested and returned a negative result, while another lives outside of the health district. Of the 13 cases, 4 are linked to an aged care facility at Edgeworth. 3 were infectious in the community. Victoria, meanwhile, has recorded another 21 locally acquired COVID-19 cases, all linked to the current outbreaks, with almost half of them out and about in the community. Victoria's Health Minister Martin Foley says with positive cases in multiple suburbs across Melbourne, it's vital people come forward for testing.
So many Victorians have given up so much for us to be safe and to have, on global terms, a pretty sensible and safe set of circumstances in this state. But it's always at risk. It's always precariously balanced, and we are in that position today.
Queensland's recorded 6 new local cases of COVID-19 in the latest reporting period, as well as a young child infected in hotel quarantine. The state's Deputy Chief Health Officer, Dr. James Smith, says the Delta cluster is targeting children.
We've seen a greater proportion of children with Delta. It'd be wonderful to see children vaccinated, and I hope that'll come soon. But at the moment, we've got our priority groups.
The ACT has conducted more than 4,500 COVID-19 tests, recording just 1 additional case in the past 24 hours. That takes the total number of active cases in the territory to 7, though none are in hospital. ACT Chief Minister Andrew Barr says the message for Canberrans this weekend is very clear.
Please stay at home. Only go out if you absolutely need to. The best thing that you can do to protect our community, to protect your family and friends and yourself, is to stay at home over this weekend.
In the United States, 3 teachers in Florida's second largest school district, Broward County, have died from COVID-19 within a day of each other. The news comes as students prepare to return to classrooms next week. The district, north of Miami, is the 6th biggest in the United States, with over 270,000 students. School virus protocols have become the subject of fierce debate as the Delta variant spreads. Florida's Republican governor is threatening to withhold pay from school leaders who require masks for pupils. A former US commander in Afghanistan, David Petraeus, says the country is facing a nightmare as Taliban militants continue a lightning offensive. They now control half of Afghanistan's provincial capitals, and they're less than 80 kilometres from the nation's capital, Kabul. The US is this week dispatching 3,000 troops to evacuate diplomatic staff. President Joe Biden's defending the decision to withdraw all US forces, but David Petraeus says it needs to be reversed.
The situation obviously is just disastrous. It's truly a catastrophe. And what happens next depends very much on what the U.S. is willing to do and actually will do to show the Taliban that we will not allow them to take the capital.
And in breaking news, an Afghan official says Taliban militants have now launched a major attack on the large northern city of Mazar-e-Sharif. And the West Coast Fever move into Super Netball's preliminary final with a 75-67 win over the Sunshine Coast Lightning in today's minors semi-final. The Fever will play Giants Netball for a place in the grand final after the Giants went down to the New South Wales Swifts in a 1-goal thriller. The Swifts defeated the Giants 62-61. You're up to date with ABC News.
As winter turns to spring, it's time to look after your citrus, and the August issue of ABC Gardening Australia magazine has a step-by-step guide. Revel in pretty freesias and tea trees, and find out how to work a bit of black magic with dark leaf plants. Tino shares tips for growing potatoes, and there's advice for West Coast rose lovers dealing with the curse of chili thrips. Gardening Australia magazine, available from newsagents and abcmagazines.com.au.
The 2021 AFL Premiership season on ABC Radio and on ABC Sport Digital.
Kick for the Blues up to left half forward, works for McGovern. Takes the mark, wastes little time, heads to the top of the goal square. Casbolt crunches the pack. Hand pass flicked out for Honey. Dribbles it through in the goal square. got forward of the ball and was left alone, and the Blues with back-to-back goals in the space of a minute. Kennedy now for the Blues, hands it back to Murphy. From 45, heads to the top of the goal square. Jonas spoils it down to Honey, gets it on the boot. This time he's got his second.
Now it's Houston with the ball from the hand pass. He goes long and deep looking for Curnow. Wiedering knocks it away at the front. Picked up by Marshall. Skills for a big man off the left foot, dribbles it through. Brilliant finish. Marshall has 2 for Port Adelaide. They creep back.
Boak gets a hand pass towards the square. Didn't sit for Bonner, but Houston's there to assist. Shrugs the Murphy tackle. Heads to the scoreboard pocket for Georgiades. Gets away from the first game at Kemp. Takes the mark, tight angle to the right, 25 from home. Comes in, puts it on the right towards home. Oh, that's something special. Mitch Georgiades sneaks it through from the tight angle. Port Adelaide, 3 straight goals.
Kick long and strong, and Laddams had it twice. Boak had it off his hands. He gave it to Fantasia, and that's all she wrote. Fantasia with a nice goal. They can thank the 300 gamer Travis Boak.
The 2021 AFL Premiership season on ABC Radio and on ABC Sport Digital.
Great to have your company at the Adelaide Oval. The second half underway very shortly on ABC Radio and ABC Sport Digital. It is Port Adelaide leading by 15 points. They kicked the last 6 goals of the second quarter after Carlton led by 4 at the first break. So we do have a game on our hands, and Port Adelaide at the moment, though, have all the momentum, and they're looking to move into top spot, at least temporarily. Geelong at the moment down by 11 points against St Kilda in the third. Earlier today, the Western Bulldogs losing to Hawthorn by 27. So the opportunity is there, but can the power grasp it is the question. Around the country as well in the NRL, the Rabbitohs defeated the Titans by 30 points. At the moment, the West Tigers lead the Cowboys 12-0. And the Super Netball, the New South Wales Swifts advancing to the grand final, defeating the Giants by 1 goal. Third quarter underway at the Adelaide Oval. It is Port Adelaide up by 15 points. In the middle, Carlton look for a quick clearance. Fisher threw it on the boot, cut off by Amon. Ed Curnow can gather, though, a hand pass forward to Paddy Dow. Then back to De Koning, is brought down by Drew, just drives him into the deck. Ball's held up in the centre square and will be tossed up. Aaron Bryans and Neil Cross with you alongside Carlton Premiership player Scott Camporelli and Adelaide Crows Premiership player Rod Jamieson.
Ball down again, and again we'll get a ball up. Walsh for Carlton, tackles Boak for Port Adelaide. So just outside the centre circles, up we go again. Laddams taps it down to Willem Drew, who released the hands, gave it to Boak, and then down to half forward he goes with a kick. Stocker did well, took it away and then gave it up with a hand pass and a tackle. Coming away, it goes to Rosie, and Rosie inside 50, top of the square. Dixon flies, comes to the front. Murphy was there briefly, and then Marshall picked it up and he almost did something brilliant again. The big man with good skills, but that time just under enough pressure for the minor score.
He's been everywhere today, Todd Marshall, and returned to the side. He was the medical sub last week, and we had our doubts about the 4 tools in the forward line, but Todd Marshall certainly making it work. 2 goals so far this afternoon, or heading into this evening. Adam Sard clears it for the Blues out of the 50. Ed Curnow tried to soccer off the deck, but Drew was there. It's cut off and now contested in front of the boundary line. Here's Paddy Dow. Gets through a couple of tacklers. Hand passes to Walsh. Then back to Noons on the logo. Through the western side, Dow will now kick to the 50. Aaliyah just ran into space almost before the kick even happened. Just knew it was coming. Takes the uncontested intercept mark for the Power and heads to right half back to Bergman, who takes it at right half back. So Port Adelaide up by 16 points the start of the second quarter on Grandstand AFL.
And that's the frustrating thing. Like, Paddy Dow should know better than that. He had plenty more time. He just bombed away. Charlie did all the work to get some space, and he puts it well out, nowhere near him.
Down the line, Laddams with the mark, contested. Then he gave it off to Gray. Interesting kick. I don't think he meant it, way high. Inside the forward 50. Willem Drew off the contest and tackled behind by Fisher, and across the line it goes. So we'll get a throw in about 45 out right half forward for Port Adelaide. We've got a 16-point lead after they trailed by 23 points 14 minutes into the second term. Flat, low throw in. Dixon almost had it. And now we'll get a ball up as Stocker is taken into the turf by Butters.
Quick reset. Dixon taps it down. He's looking for Boak behind, and it works for him. The hand pass to Butters, though, cut off. O'Brien brought him to the deck. Boak regathers. Flat kick in front of Georgiades. Off the bounce, Drew can gather. Hands it wide to Rosie. Dribbles it from the right forward pocket. Connor Rosie. That was a lovely looking kick along the turf. Connor Rosie gets the first of the third quarter. Port Adelaide push it to a 22-point lead. 9-7-61 plays 5-9-39. 3 minutes gone in the third term on Grandstand AFL.
Well, it's just forward pressure, really, and then some really good craft. So Dixon just kept the ball in the area, and it was a smart kick by Travis Boak, but Willem Drew, how clean was he below his knees? One take off the ground, one hand, flicked it up to Rosie, and he doesn't need a lot of time and space to hit the scoreboard.
8 goal scorers to Port Adelaide. Todd Marshall has 2, and just with the firepower out from Carlton coming to this game, 88 goals missing. I was going to wonder where their goals are going to come from. There is a good spread with the 4 that they've got. Josh Honey has the 2 in the second quarter, but it doesn't look like they're going to do too much more damage in this second half.
Out of the middle, centre clearance that time by Walsh, sliding in, taking the mark at centre half forward, Betts. He backs off just a few from the mark, and then he goes around and then spears a pass inside 50 that didn't work. Bergman picked it up for Port Adelaide, gave it back to Jonas, and then in the right back pocket, Burne-Jones receives, takes the mark, backs up.
He almost rushed it, Eddie Betts.
It was a poor option.
Burne-Jones heads to the western wing. Marshall in front position, couldn't take it. Brody Kemp caught him from behind and gives away the free kick in the process. Todd Marshall at right half back for the Power. So 2 goals to his name already, and return to the side. He'll head through the western wing to right half forward. Contest awaits there. Rosie got some flight but couldn't take it. Spills to the back. Gathered by Stocker, who swings around on the left. Low flat ball for Betts, just in the field of play. Threw it on the boots, goes along the boundary line and is cut off by Burne-Jones. Underground hand pass to Bergman. Again on the boundary line, stays in. Under pressure, he's put it along the deck back to Clure. He rushes his kick forward. Bounces in front of Georgiades. He's got Williamson all over him. Rosie slides in, can't gather. Picked up well by Dow. Hand pass to Sard. Long kick for the Blues back to the arc, and good mark taken from Clure, who rises up behind McGovern. Port Adelaide have it just outside defensive 50. They're up by 22 points, 5.5 gone in the third.
Mitch McGovern need a lift, 7 disposals, 4 marks, and he's kicked the 1 goal.
Cleary called a play on. Comes back towards centre wing. Laddams came late, knocked it down. Bergman took it, and he taken down straight away by Nunes. So we'll get a ball up right in front of the interchange gates. Laddams goes against the Koning, who knocks it down, and Fantasia at the front of the pack for Port Adelaide just scoots away inside 50 with his kick. Wiedering knocks it away. Dixon picks it up on the ground, on his back, gets it to Fantasia. Forward hand pass to Robbie Gray, wanders in and kicks a goal. Slick work from the Power. They're certainly coming back hard. After Carlton led by 23 points in the second term, Port Adelaide is now out by 28 points, 10-7-67. Carlton 5-9-39 on Grandstand AFL. Down to the boundary, Jack Burketta.
There was some concern down here when Lockie Plowman came limping from the ground. The Carlton Medicos concerned about his left hip pointer, but he's been on the bike, turning his leg over, and looks as though he'll be able to continue.
But it's good forward half footy, which is what the modern day game is about getting field position, locking it in, and pressure. But for me, Jamo, it starts from Mitch McGovern. He can't get outmarked there. I mean, that's really poor. I mean, they've got pressure on the ball. They need to compete. That's what Port Adelaide feast on, is turning the ball over in their back half of the ground and then counter-attacking on you. You've just got to compete and bring the ball to the ground.
Scott Camporelli, Rod Jamieson, your experts. Port by 28. In the middle, De Koning taps it down, but Wines is there. Hand pass cut off by the Blues ruckman. Tries to paddle it to Kennedy, who's met by the hip. Big collision with Laddams. He's a bit dazed in the middle. Meanwhile, the Power continue to surge forward. Butters to Boak from 45 on the right. It's too far left. And so far left that it's just snuck in for a minor score. Good news for Kennedy, who's back on his feet. He went low to the ground and caught the hip of Peter Laddams and went straight to the deck, but he's back on his feet. Port Adelaide up by 29 points, approaching the 8-minute mark of the third.
Wiedering brings the ball in, runs his full measure, sends it out to the eastern side of the ground. Ball comes off the pack. Charlie Curnow just handballs in forward in hope, picked up by Burne-Jones for Adelaide. Quick slick hand pass to Wines. Wines inside forward 50. Stocker comes across the front of the pack, punches it high. Dixon just chases after it. Well, somehow lost it in a tackle. Went from Boak across to Lycett. He hooks it back to goal. Hooked it too far, the big man. So the minus score extends the margin to bang on 6 goals. So 30 points the margin in favour of Port Adelaide.
See pressure then. Stocker had to take the mark. He got the fist to it, which kept the ball alive deep in Port Adelaide's 50.
Speaking of maths, 5 goals, sorry.
Speaking of comebacks over at Geelong, the Cats have hit the front. So they lead St Kilda by 2 points, 8-4-52 to 8-2-50 midway through the third. The ball's made its way to the western wing, and Houston will guide Levi Casbolt over the boundary line to toss it back into play. The text line, if you'd like to get in touch, 0467 922 891. Sam from Marion did that in response to the halftime discussion about Tasmania. He says, Jamo, you're short-sighted about North. Low depth, 45,000 members, significant development, and they're about to add Horn Francis to the team. So very boyish there for the North Melbourne prospects. Carlton heading forward. Betts is wrapped up without the ball by Cleary. No free kick. Blues have numbers though. Kennedy fumbles as he tries to get a hand pass out. De Koning flicked it out. Ed Curnow cut off by Robbie Gray though. The power now running forward through the western wing. Takes a bounce and heads to right half forward. Lycett uses the body on Kemp but can't take the mark. Kick smothered over the boundary line. Stocker trying to clear it. Marshall wrapped him up. And there's a free kick coming back to Stocker against Marshall for that tackle. It was deemed high. So Liam Stocker for the Blues at left half back heads to defensive 50. He'll hit up Kemp and they'll complete the switch through Newman out to Williamson.
Williamson looks once down the ground and Charlie Curnow's run hard for him, and then the kick was astray, very astray, out on the full out there on the eastern side of the ground. So Port Adelaide will get the turnover. It'll go to Carl Amon. Had a really good season. We're talking up there with the best in terms of all Australian possibilities. Inside he goes with the kick to Burton. So Port Adelaide still behind centre wing. Burton called to play on. No options inside. He just sends it high to centre half forward, and from behind Kemp knocks it away for Carlton. It comes to Gray on the ground. Hand pass underground. Bounces up perfectly for Amon, and he spoils the good work of Gray by absolutely shanking his kick off the left foot, out on the full. Carlton will take over in the right back pocket.
He'd be disappointed with that, Carl. Beautiful kick of the ball.
He did the same in the first quarter too. He kicked it behind. He's getting wider.
So Carlton through Wiedering, head wide to Newman, then Fisher, left half back, and now central. His kick for the Blues heads down the western wing. Cut off though by Burne-Jones for the power. Short kick around the body works for Dersma. He's met a bit heavily after by Stocker. Doesn't matter. Mark was paid. Port Adelaide have it forward of centre wing through Xavier Dersma. Short kick down the line. Works for Butters. The young crop combining. Burne-Jones now a hand pass to Gray, who has some run from 55. He'll centre his kick to the goal square. Dixon had Wiedering all over him. Tried to, throw him away. Didn't work. The spoil knocked out of play in the right forward pocket. Boundary throw-in to come. Inside Port Adelaide's attacking 50. Up by 30 points, 11.5 gone in the third.
He's starting to get angry.
He's got that look in his eyes, Charlie. Look out if you're a Carlton player that wants to drop in that hole.
Well, if you're the next person to be tackled by him, you wouldn't want to be. De Koning clears the area.
He wouldn't do anything silly either, Crossy, this late too.
No. So De Koning cleared the area, then Burne-Jones took it and sent it 40 metres backwards to Jonas, who goes more inboard with his kick. He finds Burton, who handed it on straight away to Houston, then back to Burne-Jones by foot. Burne-Jones played on, almost run down, sends it to the goal, or the top of the goal square, and off hands it comes. It's going to be Carlton getting it outside 50, but it's going to come back from Port Adelaide.
Rosie got it to Fantasia, then Burne-Jones ducks around the attempted smother, but his kick under pressure is turned over to De Koning, who marks in defensive 50 for the Blues.
They've had it in their forward 50 for most of this third quarter, 9-2 inside 50s.
Great game for the young ruck as well. He kicks it out of the 50. Aaliyah nearly cuts it off. A few players around the ball. Charlie Curnow gets down low and picks it up, hands it to Walsh. Out wide to Betts now at left half back for Carlton. Has a bit of time to think about it and kicks back to Sam Walsh, who marks true centre wing on the western side. It's been a big night for young Sam, running around the ground, 26 touches, coming up on 27 now. Head short to the debutant Corey Durden, and now a central kick to Lockie O'Brien. They waste little time. Has a runner, hand passes out to Stocker, who finds the open Charlie Curnow in the 50, sets it up in front of him in the scoreboard pocket. He'll mark 35 from goal, 45-degree angle to the right.
We've spoken about Walsh's work rate all night too, and his ability. He was in one contest, ran down and received another short kick. Keep it alive, switch inside, and then Alir miles off Charlie Curnow, but it's critical that the kit has to find the mark. Low gets there quickly and the defender doesn't have a chance.
So his third game for the year after injuring his knee in 2019. Charlie Curnow looking to open his account. It's a flat kick across the goal face. Stays in the field of play, and there's a mark in the left forward pocket taken by Honey. Josh Honey in the pack, almost the smallest player in it, has taken it on the tight angle. Quickly runs around on the right, looking to curl it. Had a good angle, but hits the left-hand goalpost. Minor score to the Blues. Down by 29 points now. It's Port Adelaide 10-9-69. Carlton 5-10-40. We've just hit the 14-minute mark of the third quarter on Grandstand AFL. Over at Geelong, the Cats still lead by 2 over the Saints. It's 9-4-58 to 9-2-56. Time on in the third there.
Kick in wide on the eastern side, found Fantasia, who gave it to Lysett, and then Amon, and then inside 50, carries the kick over the head of Dixon. Stocker is at the back for Carlton. Goes back to Casbolt, haven't called his name for a while, takes the mark for Carlton, drops it in short. And O'Brien takes it. Now he's forced to play on because he tried to wheel around. Gave it back to Casbolt. Down the line, Alir had control of the ball. Got it forward. They walked the tightrope at the boundary line. Eventually Bonner goes with the kick down the line. And it's knocked away from Charlie. Dixon over the boundary line just before Rosie can pull it back just outside attacking 50. And left half forward for Port Adelaide.
No, it doesn't reflect the scoreboard at the moment, but I have been impressed with the defence of Carlton. There's some young players in there, the amount of pressure that they're being put on, the amount of football in their defensive area, they're working hard.
In the ruck contest, Casbolt tapped it down, but Wines was there. Hand pass to Amon with plenty of time at left half forward, and he spoilt it. Turns it over to Jack Noons in defensive 50 for the Blues. Dangerous kick, a bit short, ended up working for Paddy Dow. Still inside defensive 50, he'll head to right half back. Little chip pass worked for Matthew Kennedy. So the Blues trying to figure out an answer. They led in the second quarter, as Crossy touched on. At one point, they were up by 23 points, but they're down by 29 now at the moment. A big swing, and the kick down the line is knocked out of play for a boundary throw-in on the eastern side. On the text line, Dave from Morphettville says, "Hi Aaron, enjoying the commentary, but a bit of a scare in the opening quarter. I hope Port have changed gears now until the end. Go Power."
Yeah, I can't see how Carlton are going to, if not halt momentum, but certainly change it to get it back in their favour.
Casbolt in the ruck, threw a foot at the ball. It came to the front cleanly by Butters to Amon by hand, and then inside forward 50 with the kick and towards the boundary line, and that was deliberate from Stocker. He was pushed towards the ball and over it went, and the free kick to Port Adelaide just outside 50. Wines takes it, keeps the ball low, and Dixon leads out from the square unopposed, and he takes the mark. Another one you would think coming up, another goal coming up for Port Adelaide.
Well, it might have been Connor Rosie there, I think, that just cleared the pathway for Charlie Dixon. Wiedering was nowhere seen. Great kick by Wines, so it gave him every chance to run up at it.
Dixon with an eye on the clock, taking every bit of his 30 seconds, just trying to get his breath back, but give all these players a break. Now he starts his run in, leans back on the kick, no problems. Port Adelaide have absolutely slipped Carlton. They move along to 11-9-75. Carlton 5-10-40. Carlton since the, let's see, they haven't scored a goal since the 14-minute mark of the second term. So they are really in a lot of trouble. 35 points to the margin on Grandstand AFL.
Well, it's just the ease. Sorry, Jamo. It's just the ease of Port when they go inside forward 50 to score. They're just finding players, they're working as a team now, and their kicking's actually gone to another level because the pressure's actually dropped from Carlton's perspective. But they're certainly playing the game in their front half. 14 inside 50s to 3 for the quarter.
30-13 handball received. So they're running and working for each other now and using the football much better, as Campo's highlighted.
Scott Camperelli, Rod Jamieson, your experts. In the middle, Lycett gets an early flight, taps it down. He's looking for the runner in Butters, had Walsh all over him. Kennedy flicks it out for the Blues, back to De Koning. Threw it on the left up to left half forward with the rise. Houston knocks it down with the double fist. Butters overruns it, almost clean bowled him, but Dersmer's there to assist. Hand pass back to Butters. Now the power head to right half forward. In front position, Wines nearly took the mark. Newman from behind wants to claim it as he juggled it at the fall of the ball. Williamson flicks a hand pass out to De Koning, and now the short pass to centre wing will work for Ed Curnow. Wastes little time. Wheels around on the right, looking for Casbolt at centre half forward. Stood his ground. Got rid of Cleary. Takes the mark, 55 out. Hand pass to the running Plowman. Didn't have anywhere to go to. Hand passes back to O'Brien, who slipped. Now back to Casbolt, who's nearly run down. Drew missed the tackle. Now O'Brien finally heads towards home for the Blues. It's starting right and not coming back enough. They made a meal of that. So many chances as they mucked around with the footy. Minor score for the Blues. Down by 34 points approaching time on in the third.
I think Casbolt, we just see there his ability to be able to stand under the football, his strength to be able to keep Cleary out. And I guess the concern or the biggest efficiency he's had is his kicking. But he's had 3 or 4 goes at it, all from about the same spot. He was better off just having a crack himself.
Burton brought the ball in for Port Adelaide off the contest. Port able to just get it forward, and Dersmer takes it and he kicks it long down towards half forward. Oh, good work. Fantasia was the target. Williamson was the victor for Carlton. Just got in front at the right time and took a strong mark. Nobody available inside. Port's tightened up. Now he goes across the ground and deep. Georgiades was there, but he managed to make his kick to Plowman. O'Brien tried to mark then as Plowman kicked to him. Bergman knocked it away. Brilliant. For Port. And inside 50, he meets the chest of Laddams. So the big ruckman will have a shot from, 35, 40 metres out.
And that's a great clip. Ken would be showing that on Monday in the review. The reason I say that is because every time Carlton have been able to open Port up on that open side of the ground, change lanes, which is the terminology that we use in the coach's box, is they get out, whereas Bergman didn't allow that first option out, and it was a great one-on-one contest and then delivered to a kick inside forward 50.
Laddams, by reputation, very good for a ruckman, but astray this time off his left foot. Just left it narrow for the minor score. So, margin 35 points in favour of Port Adelaide.
Over at Geelong, St Kilda hit the front by 2, but the Cats are now back up by 1. 10-4-64 to 10-3-63, approaching three-quarter time there. And if you do want to hear that call, it's available to you on the AFL app. As the Blues head down the western wing. Off hands, Mark Murphy on the deck, trying to scrub a hand pass out. He was looking for Durden, who overran it. Butters cuts it off to Drew, then Burton, now Houston, and finally Lycett on the western wing. Hand passes out to the benches. Cleary's there. He's bowled over as he got his hand pass away. The power relenting back towards right half back. Burn-Jones gathers off to Houston. Dangerous kick that sat up too long for Butters. He could have been crunched. Nunes decided not to murder him in the air. Knocked it to ground, ball held up, 55 from goal at left half forward. So the Blues trying to surge and get some momentum. As Crossy mentioned, they haven't scored a goal since the 14-minute mark of the second quarter. On the reset, Lycett down to Drew is quickly wrapped up by Murphy and De Koning. Another ball up to come.
Sloppy play then by Paul, wasn't it? Just too much handball, short kicks, keeping it alive and putting it up to allow Carlton to actually get there.
Port Adelaide doing their best work after dark. It's a twilight game and
sounds like
lights have come on in the second half. So Murphy puts the ball back down towards the 50 for Carlton. Intercept marked by Burn-Jones. Risky inside kick, but it was good to Rosie. Then he went all the way back to the goal square to Burton, and they flicked it out to Bergman, who's in the scoreboard pocket now for Port Adelaide.
So Bergman looking for his options. Called to play on. Kicked right into the man on the mark, O'Brien. Ricochets favourably, though, for them to Rosie. Sends his kick to Amon. Marks and then hand passes to the runner, Houston. They'll head to the western side. Leading out, Georgiades on the logo, takes it. Spins around and heads to the arc. Boak's there. Sard coming across, rose over him. Did enough to paddle it out of play. Boundary throw-in to come. Some players I wanted you to keep your eyes on, gents, Jamo and Campo. Lockie O'Brien, Jack Nunes, also Lockie Plowman. They were under a lot of scrutiny for the last couple of games, and a lot of them out of contract as well. Blues fans thinking they should be out the door, but I think they've had a pretty good impact tonight so far, those three. From the ruck contest, Laddams tapped it down. De Koning gathered, though. Kick was smothered. Ricochets to Dixon, who shanks it out on the full. Free kick to Carlton in the left back pocket. They're down by 35.
Lockie O'Brien certainly had a really good first half. Probably hadn't done as much as he did in this third quarter, but still has had 14 disposals. Getting a bit of the footy.
Plowman taking the free kick for Carlton down the line with his kick. Laddams, strong punch. Gray, who's running right on top of the ground still, off to Burn Jones, and then down to the goal square. It slips over the back. Chance for the skills of Marshall to show up again. He picked it up, gave it to Bergman. Gee, that was a poor kick around the corner, and yet it's floating. And it's floating for a point. Big letdown there, but he kicked it around the corner. I thought, this is no hope off the boot, and it just floated and floated for the minus score. So, margin 36 in favour of Port Adelaide as we count down to three-quarter time, 24 gone.
Dangerous kick by the Blues. Sard heading out of the defensive goal square. Just went to Walsh. He had three on him. Took the mark in front. Sends his kick to O'Brien. They're still in defensive 50 of the Blues. So O'Brien plays on and heads to the eastern side. Close to the boundary line and too long for Williamson. Out on the full. Turnover again goes the Powers' way, short of left half forward.
That's not going to endear him to the Carlton supporters.
Make your own judgment there, Aaron.
Bergman goes down the line. It went over the head of the contest. O'Brien at the back. Hand pass to Newman. Heads back down the eastern side. Betts in space. Couldn't meet the bounce of the ball as a free kick. Aaliyah has been the recipient. I think he thought he gave it away against Charlie Curnow, but the umpires favoured him. So Port Adelaide on that eastern side, true centre.
The forward always hangs onto the back one, doesn't he?
The showdown medalist heads to Robbie Gray. The five-time medalist takes the mark, heads into the 50. He's looking for Laddams. Rises up and had too much height on Stocker. Takes it 30 from goal, 45-degree angle to the left.
And that's going to be, I guess, the headache for Ken and the match committee as to can, in a finals game, Jamo, are they going to have a time and space? Can they turn the ball over and give their tall forwards an opportunity to run and jump at the ball? So that's always going to be the ongoing question. But tonight, they've all hit the scoreboard again.
Sam Powell-Pepper was the player that went out in terms of the smaller forward and another midfielder.
Laddams heads for home. He's got the major. Port Adelaide with another in the third quarter. It's 4 unanswered in this term and a run of 10 straight unanswered goals for Port Adelaide. 12-11-83 plays 5-11-41. The Power are set to lock in a top 4 finish. Depending on other results, they could finish this game, at least temporarily, in top spot. The Power up at the moment, 5-42. Scott Camporelli, Rod Jamieson, your experts.
I just love the fact that Robbie Gray, he's a great decision maker and he does not often burn it when he kicks it inside forward 50, but just smart. Just rolled straight onto his right foot, ran into the corridor, and then Laddams was free with an undersized defender because the ball got transitioned out. So well done, Port Power.
Trent McKenzie was the other one that went out with an injury too. Hamish Hartlett's still in the background. Stephen Motlop was close. Not sure where Lockie Jones is at, but we can maybe talk about him later. 10
goal scorers for Port Adelaide. Amon bursts out of the centre, takes a bounce, goes in deep, and Dixon wasn't there. Wiedering red at best. Aaliyah at the other end, just able to read the play. Now he goes across the goal face, short to Williamson. He backs up. Just trying to take some time. Off he runs, call the play on. picks off a kick, picks it off well, finds Newman just outside defensive 50. Saad runs for him and he puts on a burst and he's inside the centre square and then wobbles a kick forward. Somehow it finds its way to Charlie Curnow, who gives it off to the 300 gamer in Mark Murphy, drops it short. And the mark taken by Paddy Dow, was that 15? The umpire said yes. Boy, you talk about butchering the ball. Dow went back, looked to kick into the pocket and overshot the mark, and just inside 50 at a 45-degree angle, kicking to the boundary, puts it over the boundary line.
It's the most important kick in footy. I don't care what anyone says. They can argue till they're black and blue in the face. But if you don't have players in your team that can make great decisions and kick the ball inside forward 50, you are not going to go anywhere in this game.
Off the right contest, O'Brien heads back into the 50 for the Blues. He listened to you, Campo. He hit up Mitch McGovern. 30 from home, straight in front. The Power had a couple of chances, but it ricocheted to O'Brien and he made the most of it. Mitch McGovern looking for his second.
And that's what we know he can do. He just hangs there. He's got great vertical leap. He can take the occasional hanger. Just doesn't have the impact on the game as much as we'd like to see.
His fourth game of the year, Mitch McGovern. He doesn't capitalise on the opportunity. Too far left, minor score for the Blues. Down by 41 points. And Derek on the text line cheekily says the Crows put in a better performance against Port Adelaide than Carlton did last week. Any thoughts, Scott Camporelli?
Well, hard to argue against that, to be quite honest. Carlton are playing completely different to what Adelaide were, that's for sure. But, yep, full credit to Adelaide last week.
So that'll do us for 3 quarters of football. Port Adelaide looks set for their 16th win of the season. They're up by 41 points heading into the final quarter. 12-11-83 plays 5-12-42. The goal scorers at 3-quarter time for the Power, 2 to Marshall and Dixon. Singles to Gray, Boak, Fantasia, Bergman, Georgiades, Rosie, Lysett and Laddams. Meanwhile for Carlton, 2 to Josh Honey. Singles to Casbolt, McGovern and Kennedy. It's been all Port Adelaide since the 14-minute mark of the second quarter. They've kicked 10 unanswered goals and they look set to lock in a top 4 finish. Whether or not they can be in top spot will be dependent on the other game at the moment. Geelong leading St Kilda by 2 points at the start of the fourth quarter there. 10-5-65 to 10-3-63. Great to have your company on Grandstand AFL this evening on ABC Radio and ABC Sport Digital. Join us next for the fourth quarter.
Arts, politics and culture from a range of Indigenous perspectives. On Speaking Out.
We're seeing a lot of our people, young people, going away. We should be guiding them.
We must have a country to call our own.
A lot of our women were taking their children back into the bush and hiding.
Speaking Out with Larissa Berendt, Sundays at 9 p.m. on ABC Radio.
The 2021 AFL Premiership season on ABC Radio and on ABC Sport Digital.
Boak regathers, flat kick in front of Georgiades. Off the bounce, Drew can gather, hands it wide to Rosie, dribbles it from the right forward pocket, Connor Rosie. That was a lovely looking kick along the turf.
Dixon picks it up on the ground, on his back, gets it to Fantasia, forward hand pass to Robbie Gray, wanders in and kicks the goal. Slick work from the Power. Free kick to Port Adelaide, just outside 50. Wines takes it, keeps the ball low, and Dixon leads out from the square unopposed, and he takes the mark. Leans back on the kick, no problems. Port Adelaide have absolutely slipped Carlton.
The 2021 AFL Premiership season on ABC Radio and on ABC Sport Digital.
It's been a dominant performance by Port Adelaide in the second half. They lead by 41 points over Carlton in Mark Murphy's 300th and final game. Might also be Eddie Betts' final game at the Adelaide Oval, and we haven't seen a lot of him tonight. Port Adelaide running away with things. They'll lock away a top 4 spot if they can hang on here. And they may even move to first or second position depending on how the other games of the round fall. The Giants defeated Richmond by 39 points last night. Hawthorn defeating the Western Bulldogs by 27 earlier today. Currently Geelong leads St Kilda by 3 points at Geelong, 10-6-66 to 10-3-63. And here, as I just mentioned, Port Adelaide up by 41 points. On the text line, if you'd like to get in touch with us, 0467 922 891. And also if you would like to stay tuned for the remainder of our coverage this evening. We've got a game coming up for you next on Grandstand AFL, Brisbane up against Collingwood at the Gabba, so stay tuned for that. Quinton Hull and Michael Price to take you through it. Aaron Bryans and Neil Cross with you here at the Adelaide Oval. Your experts, Rod Jamieson, Scott Camporelli. Is there any hope for Carlton to get back into this one?
We're just looking at the perfect pair, so the version 2.
It's our favourite game show.
They've both said yes, but anyway, getting back to the game.
That's what we've descended to.
Well, to be fair, I mean, Port have dominated the game really since halfway through the second quarter. Even that quarter there, I mean, 19 inside 50s to 7, and they just scored at ease, to be quite honest. They belted them up around the contest. They started to get that uncontested game going that we know from Port Adelaide. Most of their score, to be fair, came from turnover in the first half. They kicked 7 goals and Carlton kicked the 4. But that quarter, they started to flex their muscles around the clearance game and kick 3 goals, but still kick 1 goal 4 from turnover. So they're scoring way too easy. That's always been this year, I guess, and that's the knock on David Teague and the Carlton Footy Club this year, is they just allow teams to score too easy. Now, clearly they're undermanned to a certain extent down there. I still think that Wiedering's a star of the competition, and he's done a great job on Dixon, although he's competed really well, Charlie, but he just needs some support down there, and he needs some pressure up the field, and obviously some midfield depth. You know, obviously with Cripps going out, Walsh is carrying the can, Kennedy's tried, Murphy's had a pretty good first half but didn't do a lot that quarter, but Boat, Wines, Amon, Butters, Rosie, you know, you continue on. These guys are just starting to get hold of the ball through the middle of the ground. And the half-back line, you know, Houston's been damaging. Darcy Bird-Jones, which he probably hasn't had the year that he had last year, to be fair. So he gained some confidence from tonight. But Alir's been dominant at cross half-back as well. As we said, though, the Achilles heel for Port is if they can keep Carlton to kick straight lines, then these intercept defenders come into play, and they're great defenders. As soon as they've been able to get the ball offline and get some speed in it, that's when Port get exposed. So that'll be the thing I think that Ken and the coaching group would take out of tonight still, is if they can't keep teams skinny and don't allow them to shift the ball, how are we going to defend when that happens? And when they come up against a team like Geelong and a team like Brisbane, who do move the ball and do have better skills than what Carlton are showing tonight, that's going to be the difference whether they go all the way or not.
Tom De Koning is hanging there manfully. He's had 20 hit-outs and taken most of the ruck work tonight. Casbolt's helped in that area too, and he's had to go up against Lysett and Laddam, so it's been dual, but he's hung in there and just hasn't had the support all around the ground, and that kick inside 50 when they've had that chance.
Port by 41. Quickly to Jack Paqueta on the boundary. There's some big news down there.
Scott Lysett has been subbed out of the game. Sam May's activated as the medical sub. They are putting some ice on that left knee, but they don't seem too concerned about it.
Maybe just a precaution. The Western Bulldogs to come next week. In the middle, Laddams wins the tap down, looking for Butters. He was wrapped up in the tackle. Ed Curnow clears it for the Blues. A bouncing ball went over the head of Burton. Houston can mop it up. A hand pass to Amon. He tried to go inbound to Wines, cut off by Durden. Messy football at the moment. Kennedy gathers for Carlton. Hand pass out towards Ed Curnow. Threw it on the boot towards the arc. McGovern got some space on Alir, but the ball sat up too long. Alir cuts it off. Wastes little time. Long kick down the line to Dixon. Mark short of left half forward. Wheels around into the 50. It's a one-on-one. Georgiades against Plowman, and the Blue did very well. Spoiled it down to Sard. Gathers and clears defensive 50. Kicks out wide for Nunes at left half back.
Nunes inside. He goes to Kennedy on the point of the square at half back for Carlton. He flares out wide, looking for Casbolt. Ball knocked away from him by Cleary for Port Adelaide to Alir, and Alir inboard with a kick. And McGovern appealing for holding the ball, but Wines went down low and got the ball, and at the same time McGovern got him. So we'll get a throw up left half forward for Carlton. And off the contest it came to O'Brien, then to Kennedy inside 50 with the kick. It was scrubbed though and picked up by Jonas, whose kick off his non-preferred left foot was perfect, found Wines. He looks up towards centre wing, and Sard comes across and takes an intercept mark for Carlton. Now the 300 gamer, he goes inside to Murphy. Murphy's pulled down after he took the mark, but he plays on now.
Flat kick to centre half forward, works for Kennedy, leading out. He's about 55 from home, taking his time walking back as if he's going to take a shot. Don't think he has the distance, and he's pointed long. Called to play on by the umpire, who didn't believe him either. Long kick over the head of Betts and rolls over the pack past the boundary line to be tossed back into play. And we don't see that too often. The umpire's calling out fake set shots for goal. And
well, he was never going to do it, Aaron, was he? You know, he was that far out and he turned his back, and you felt that that's what he probably would have done, maybe 40 or 30 out, but really poor. And then the kick was even worse.
Wasting time isn't going to win them the game. They're down by 41. Toss back into play. Amon gets the quick clearance to the centre square, though Newman is waiting for it. Takes it on the chest for the Blues.
Yep, that's 50, isn't it?
The man did stand off the mark, but I'm not sure if the umpire had called stand. So Bonner waits on the mark. Newman brought back and now gets his kick away. Into the 50 he goes. Great one. Straight in front of Tom to Koning, who takes the mark. 35 from goal, straight in front.
That's where I'd love to see Carlton's forward line. If Koning's going to spend time down there, Harry McKay is not down there too. And then you got Kerno. Like, they've certainly got some serious firepower when they've got a full and healthy list.
So Tom de Koning, the solo ruck with Mark Pittenay out of the team, showing why he is the future of this football club. Comes in, kicks from 45 on the left. Not a great one.
Maybe that's why he's in the ruck.
Maybe why. Minor score to the left, and that's generous. 40-point lead to Port Adelaide. 12-11-83 to 5-13-43. 3.5 gone in the final quarter here at the Adelaide Oval. Over at Cardinia Park, it is the Cats up by 9 over the Saints. 11-6-72 to 10-3-63.
Port Adelaide bring the ball back into play. It's got to centre half forward for Carlton, though. Again, off to Murphy. Murphy just drops it out in front of Casbold, who he had it, lost it. Now he tries to shake off Cleary, who says, you're not going anywhere. Umpire call play on. Wonder how he got rid of it. It's found its way to Bonner, though, for Port Adelaide. Outside 50 found Georgiades. Then Bonner runs again. Flares it to the wing. Eastern side to Gray. Wanted to get off the mark quickly. Did so because he had Rosie forward of the play. There's just numbers flowing forward for Port Adelaide. Butters with the ball. Inside he goes to Georgiades. And a healthy bit of work from Georgiades because he started that move at half back.
Good work rate, wasn't it, too? We spoke earlier about his ability to be able to work earlier and to be an option once Port Adelaide have possession of it. We've spoken about Sam Walsh's ability to do exactly the same for Carlton. Just doesn't have enough support, but geez, his athleticism, his endurance, you think as he continues to build that and the more games that he plays, the more comfortable he'll be, and he does present well.
Already kicked one major tonight. Mitch Georgiades, in he comes, lays back, happy with the result. Another one for Port Adelaide. They're just clearing out now. And I guess in terms of where they might finish on the ladder, percentage becomes important as well. 13-11-89 plays 5-13-43, 5 minutes into the final quarter. And you just wonder how much Carlton has got left for Mark Murphy in his 300th game.
Yeah, not a lot, I don't think, Crossy, to be fair. I mean, that was just too easy. Port ability to kick the ball and keep the ball on the body, and then they've got those guys that just run and spread. And, you know, traditionally under Ken Hinkley, as soon as they get their tails up, they don't need a second invitation, Jamo, to get themselves moving ahead of the ball. So, and why wouldn't you? If you've got a team that kicks the ball and they're prepared to work, you get reward for effort. So, good ball movement, and he is a beautiful set shot for goal, hasn't he? He's got a nice technique.
The bigger picture too for this is, you know, the result could be significant, and Carlton then play GWS next week's round, and you've got a coach whose career is of concern.
From the middle, Boak with a defensive hand pass. Wasn't great, but ended up working for Houston, who heads to the western wing. Out in front of the benches, Laddams puts his head over the ball, and de Koning bowls him over. So free kick to Peter Laddams, just behind centre wing. Aaron Bryans, Neil Cross with you alongside Scott Camporelli and Rod Jamieson. Patrick Cripps was the laid out for the Blues, and Scott Lysett has been subbed with the left knee injury for the Power, although Jack Paqueta assures us nothing too major. Riley Bonner heads down the line to Houston, who marks on the logo. Plays on, runs around the man on the mark and heads into the 50. Dixon's there, one-on-one with Wiedering. Plowman comes across, spoils it over the boundary line to be tossed into play in the left forward pocket for Port Adelaide. They're up by 46 points, 13-11-89 to 5-13-43. Over at Cardinia Park, Geelong leading St Kilda by 8, 13-minute mark of the final quarter.
Do we know any updates of Tom Stewart of Geelong?
He's out for the year.
Ball comes back into play. Robbie Gray off the tap. He gave it back to Butters. Forward he goes to Boak. Over his head he went back to Gray and then hand passes to Bergman, who was outside the boundary line. Boundary umpire, I should say, finally noticed. He's going to throw it in about 20 around from the goal face. Carlton yet to beat Port Adelaide here at the Adelaide Oval, and haven't won against Port Adelaide in Adelaide since 2013. They won't be winning tonight. Off the contest it comes again to Boak, released it to Fantasia, tried to knock it on. Now he makes a tackle and it's a holding the ball decision. Fantasia for Port Adelaide with the tackle on Plowman, swung him around, had one of his arms. It made it hard for poor Lockie Plowman there, and he tried to get a foot to the ball as it dropped down, wasn't successful.
The last 4 or 5 have been reasonably tight, haven't they, Crossy, too? Like, it's been less than maybe 5 or 6 goals. You've got to go back to 17, where I think Port Adelaide blew them away in that particular year, but most of the games between these two clubs have been reasonably close.
Fantasia from perhaps 35 metres out, straight in front. His kicking hasn't been great this season, and he makes the goal. Umpire do some work, but effectively, in the end, he's kicked it straight enough. So another goal for Port Adelaide. They stretch the lead again. Carlton locked on 5 goals, where they've been since the 14-minute mark of the second term. Port Adelaide moves along to 14-11-95. Carlton 5-13-43. 8 minutes down last quarter. Grandstand AFL.
Well, they're getting belted in all parts of the ground now. Minus 25 contested possession, Carlton. What's that? Minus 43 in handball received, so they're getting to the outside. 51 inside 50s to 39. So they've had 25 scoring shots, Port Adelaide, out of 50 entries, which is really efficient, obviously going inside in there. And they've all hit the scoreboard, so they're good return. Fantasia's 2, Georgiades kicked the 2, Marshall's kicked 2, and Dixon's kicked 2. So I guess people who don't think the 4 tools can work, they've all hit the scoreboard.
12 unanswered goals for the Power, up by a game-high 51, and they've headed back into the 50. Off the contest, Boat can rove from 45 too far right. Buying a score for Port Adelaide off the clearance, 14-12-96 now. Carlton 5-13-43. On the text line, Trucker Pete says, an Adelaide goodbye and thank you to Eddie Betts must have been the greatest highlights reel in the history of the game. So very likely that this is Eddie Betts' final season, 34 years of age, out of contract. His last time at the Adelaide Oval, 8 disposals so far this evening, and unfortunately we haven't seen a goal, but maybe he can pull off something miraculous in the final quarter here.
Oh, he's been a superstar, hasn't he, throughout his entire time. Both at Carlton and also at Adelaide. Travis Boak is also up there, and he's had 31 disposals. He's had 1 goal, 3. Kicking efficiency going at 23% with 13 kicks, so not where it normally is.
Carlton through to Koning, gets the ball clear of the contest, but intercept mark taken by Alia. Big match for Carlton, really. Mark Murphy in his 300th debuts for Brodie Kemp and Corey Durden, and we've just talked about Eddie Betts. But they just haven't been able to string anything together since midway through the second term. And there's another beautiful kick inside forward 50, that time from Bergman. The lead out come from Robbie Gray, and again, 35 metres out, straight in front.
Just class that was, wasn't he, too? I heard throughout the week he loves the gym, and he's only in his first or second year, so he's going to fill out and be a better player for it as well, and maybe in turn be a real bull inside the centre square.
Bergman you're speaking of,
yes,
picked up pick number 14 in 2019. So Gray just delivers what we expected him to, another goal. And Port Adelaide just marching on. And as I said, adding some percentage. So 59 the margin, 15-12-102 Port Adelaide. Carlton 5-13-43, 11 minutes gone. Now in this final quarter, your experts on Grandstand AFL, Rod Jamieson and Scott Camporelli.
Well, once again, it was a turnover from Alia. He marked the ball at half back. uncontested mark, and then Bergman gets out the back, and it was a beautiful kick inside 50 once again. Hard to defend, particularly when the ball comes across with that sort of speed. You can blame the Carlton defenders, but if there's no pressure up the ground and the guys running at the game uncontested, very difficult to defend from there.
So a 58-point margin now for the Power over Carlton. Over at Geelong, it is the Cats up by a single point, approaching time on in the fourth over St Kilda. And obviously that game has big ramifications on where the Power finish tonight. They could be in first position at the moment on the live ladder. They're in second. Melbourne still to play tomorrow, though. Free kick in the middle to Sam Walsh for the Blues. Short kick to Ed Curnow. Takes the mark, wanted to hand pass to the runner, Plowman. Opts against it. Long kick into the 50 this time. Front position, Laddams. Juggles the mark against Casbolt. Port Adelaide with another intercept in defensive 50. He'll waste little time heading out to Marshall at left half back. Plowman got the spoil, but fell straight back into Marshall's hands, and they've paid the mark. So Todd Marshall at left half back. A couple of goals for him tonight on return. And now heads down the western wing.
In the direction of Dixon, strong grab again. Marshall and Laddams not doing any harm to their chances of going on and continuing to combine in Port Adelaide's forward line. Laddams now has run down the ground from Dixon's mark and taken a free kick for being taken high in a mark contest. So hands it off to Dersma and then on to Fantasia, and it's worked. Fantasia faking a hand pass for the first time this season has actually got Casbolt to bite. He's gone off the mark, and so it's 50.
He's tried hard, hasn't he, to do that?
He has.
I know it's about Port Adelaide, but Eddie Betts 349 games tonight, so it'll be 350 next week. Probably the number to round out, and he currently sits at 29th all-time goal kicking of the AFL VFL. It's been an outstanding career.
Orazio Fantasia, meanwhile, looking at the clock, watching it count down, as if it matters now.
Why would you not kick a drop punt here when you're 8 metres out?
He's also going to go around the corner. Now he does. And he hooks it over the goal umpire's head for a goal, as expected. Fantasia with his third of the evening. Port Adelaide with 16 on the board, 16-12, 108. Carlton 5-13, 43. 14 gone in the final term.
Margin's getting ugly, Campo. Yeah, it is.
11 minutes to go still.
Unfortunately, they've got to show some fight here, Carlton. From here, very difficult. And we've all been in this situation late in the year, no finals. There's obviously a bit going on off-field as well. It is difficult, but I guess you've got to come down to the fact of your own self-pride and how you want to be seen in really bad, unfortunate times at Carlton once again. And some of these guys, you know, whether it's David Teague or a new coach coming in, you want to still send a really positive message towards the end of the year.
Scott Camporelli, Rod Jamieson, your experts. The final stages of round 22 action here at the Adelaide Oval. Port leading by 64 points. 65 points, I should say, actually. In the middle, we're going to get a ball up. So 16-12, 108 plays, 5-13, 43. In the middle, aim on a hand pass out wide to Wines, threw it on the boot to centre half forward, set up for Fantasia. Saad did enough to bring it to the ground. Williamson gathers, caught in the tackle though, good run down. Oh, May's got him.
Holding the ball.
Ball comes out, went past Walsh. Laddams can gather, hand pass out to Amon. Now into the 50s, looking for Wines. The midfielder got some space in the left forward pocket, takes it 25 from goal. Tight angle to the left.
That's the disposal that we know of Carl Amon, the way that he uses the football on his left side with some speed and space. Had Todd Marshall, I think, was probably the intended target, with Ollie Wines just sneaking across at 44% disposal efficiency, so a little down on the way he would normally use the footy.
So Ollie Wines, disposal number 26, hits the right-hand goalpost. Minor score for the Power. 16-13, 109, leading Carlton 5-13, 43. 16 minutes gone in the final quarter. Over at Geelong, the Cats up by 2. Time on there, 11-7, 73, plays 11-5, 71.
Now a horrible mistake has Carlton bring the ball back in, and Plowman, who'd received it, then tried to drop a ball in short, and Willem Drew intercepted for Port Adelaide just just inside the forward 50. Fisher on the mark stands about 45 from goal. So
all of this distance. Crossy?
He has all of the distance, you reckon?
Yes.
Okay. Willem Drew, one of 8 power players to play every game this season. And Jamison is not the oracle, but it's still a mark in the square. Sam Mays has taken the mark, contested, and will go back from straight in front because he took the mark in the goal square. So, Gemma, you've lost out on being the oracle. You're not the answer.
He hasn't his best night again tonight.
Just keep trying. Just do my best.
So, Mays will pop through another goal. Number 17 for Port Adelaide. It was looking dodgy in the second quarter. We wondered what might happen, and Port Adelaide has put on the power. 17-13, 1-1-5. Carlton 5-13-43. 17 gone now in the final term, down to Jack Paqueta.
David Teague's seen enough. He's come down out of the coach's box and is coaching the rest of this game from the bench. Obviously alarmed about how this one could blow out from here, guys.
11 goal scorers, Port Adelaide.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately for David, there's not much really he can do. It really comes down to the players. He's tried to move some players around. I'm sure he would have sent out numerous messages. They're getting belted up around the ball. They can't put any pressure on the outside, and Port are just clicking into gear here. This could be 100 points the way it's going if they keep scoring at this sort of ease.
The Cats now by 8. Patrick Dangerfield kicking a goal on the Saints. Campo, when you look at this game, a lot of questions obviously going to be asked about David Teague and his future, but is it a coaching problem tonight, or the players just given up?
Oh, it's hard to say. I don't think players ever give up. I don't like when people say that. These are competitive beasts. These guys, do they have the talent? Do they have the process or the game plan? I guess that's what comes into question from now on in.
The Power got the clearance into the 50, but Carlton can rebound. Charlie Curnow with a backwards hand pass to Mark Murphy, put him under pressure. Amon now soccers off the deck, works favourably for Fantasia at centre-half forward to the goal scorer in a one-on-one. Wittering's all over Dixon and gives away the free kick. Held him top of the goal square. Big Charlie will receive it. Can go back and kick his third from 10 out.
And these are the guys that I feel sorry for in this situation here. They're copping the full brunt of what's happening here. Wiedering, no Carlton supporter could question his effort, his application to what he does and what he brings to the team each week, but he just can't do it on his own. Neither can Sam Walsh. So that's a tough situation to be one-on-one in space against a guy who's 200 centimetres, an absolute monster. Very difficult.
Dixon pops it through from 30, so 3 for him for the evening. Game high 78-point lead to Port Adelaide. It's all about percentage now, but they've locked away a top 4 spot. 18-13, 121 to 5-13-43. Approaching time on in the final quarter on Grandstand AFL, and over at Geelong, looks like the Cats may have sealed a win against the Saints as well. There's still some time left, but they're up by 14 now. Jeremy Cameron with his 4th goal of the evening. 13-7-85, St Kilda 11-5-71.
Well, I think certainly with this margin, Port Adelaide will go to the top of the ladder with Geelong. They've 8 percentage difference, so that's probably going to be the difficult, wasn't it?
Not enough, unfortunately. The Power need 35 more points at the moment. So
to get to top.
Late end of the season, a couple of percent ends up being a fair bit.
So you'll take number 2, and then Melbourne play Adelaide tomorrow.
So the ball in the middle, where they've thrown Marshall now, Port Adelaide. He had it briefly and then socked forward, and it was ruled to be in danger. I think it'll come back to Ollie Wines, who will take the free kick. Soccer was ruled dangerous. So Houston receives from Wines, goes to Dixon, inside forward 50. Too strong, too quick for Wiedering on that occasion. And of course advantaged by a good kick from Houston.
I watched there, Crossy. Sorry, buddy, I know you're going to call in a second, but I watched through here, and you talk about effort. Ollie Wines gets the free kick. Dan Houston's got a Carlton player on him. I couldn't quite see who it was. Ollie Wines actually gives him the nod. Run past me, I'll give you a handball receive. And the Carlton player put no pressure on Dan Houston whatsoever. So once again, Jacob Wiedering cops the end of that.
So Dixon shooting for his fourth, seemed to have hooked it, but it's coming back. It's coming back well. Well, could things have gone better for Port Adelaide? Well, yes, they could have played a better first in the first half of the second quarter, but it's all falling into place now. Dixon with 4 for the evening. Marshall's got 2, Georgiadis 2, and Fantasia 3 in terms of the forward line. And part-timer Adams has even got one. He goes down there as well, of course, the ruckman. So Port Adelaide 19-13, 127. Carlton 5-13, 43. Margin blowing out to 84 points. How much more do they need?
There's 6 minutes to go, Crossy. Like, this is going to get ugly real quick.
35 points you said prior to that, so they need another 29, which would potentially get enough percentage. But to that same point of what Jacob Wiedering's being able to do, I thought that 3 previously where Dixon kicked his 3rd goal was pretty soft, but that's probably the only time that Dixon's genuinely beat him in a contest tonight, and the kick was to the advantage.
Another clearance for the Power. Laddams into the 50. Plowman coming across, knocks it to the boundary line. Who he tossed into play, 30 from the Power goal. So 17 straight unanswered goals for Port Adelaide.
How many?
17 since the 14-minute mark of the second quarter. So Carlton have not kicked a major since then. Port Adelaide with a massive run, blowing it out to an 84-point lead. And you're right, Jamo, the live ladder, they're down by 29 points in terms of percentage. They might have another goal coming. Nice kick inbound, hits up Miles Bergman, 20 from home, straight in front. Carlton have switched off for the night.
And I watched at the centre bounce, sorry, Aaron, the Carlton are trying to generate an extra one behind the ball. So what they did after the centre bounce, they threw their winger back. I can't see who it was. But what happens now is Port get field position. Guess who's free at the other end for Port? Alir. He's the one that's going to be countering. So it's essentially Port at Carlton's extra defender, which is a winger.
Bergman kicks his 2nd for the evening.
Versus Alir, who's at the other end of the ground. So it just doesn't help when you're doing that situation. I understand why David Teague's done it. He's trying to stem the bleeding, but you just end up doubling down on the issue.
And I know, I'm just trying to think who that might have been. It might have been Stocker that should have gone for that contest too and allowed Bergman to come one way. He was running with the flight of the football, and Stocker stood back and he had to go for that contest, even at worst, to get his fist to it.
So full time at Geelong. The Cats have won by 14 points over St Kilda, 13-7-85 to 11-5-71. So it's all about the live ladder right now. Geelong in top position. Melbourne to play tomorrow, currently in 3rd. Port Adelaide need 23 more points. They've got 5.5 minutes to do it to try and knock off Geelong in top spot.
They're a Monty the way they're
4
going.
goals, yeah.
Well, that's unless Carlton does score a goal. Anyway, out of the middle, it's Port Adelaide again. Mays, errant hand pass. Newman intercepts for Carlton. Looking down to half forward, trying to drop it over the top to Honey without success. It's taken by Burn-Jones and then Alir, and then back to Burton of his left foot, which wasn't good. It was out on the full. And so at right half forward, free kick to Stocker for Carlton. Tries to drop it inside, looking for Curnow, and Burton came from behind. Alir was in front.
He's copped a knee in the back, I think.
Yeah, he's just got one in the hip, I think it was, which is worse than the back in some ways. Oh, and it doesn't look good.
18 straight goals to Port Adelaide without Carlton kicking a goal across. See, that must be some sort of record.
And Alir's back on his feet as Carlton head into the 50. Just dropped the intercept mark, though, as he rose over McGovern. Fisher just wrenches it out. Hand passes to McGovern for the Blues. Inbound, he's looking for Kemp. Put his head over the ball and was wrapped up. Drew gathers. Hand pass to Marshall. Now Burton threw it in the tackle. Free kick to Carlton. Mitch McGovern hasn't read the script. It's about Port Adelaide scoring right now. Mitch McGovern has a shot on goal. 30 from home. 45-degree angle to the right. He's had a pretty good night so far, Mitch McGovern. Going back, looking for his 2nd of the evening.
Oh, I wouldn't agree with you there.
You don't think he's had a good night?
No.
No? He's impacted the contest. 1-1, 10 disposals, coming up on 11. I mean, considering they've only kicked 5 goals and he's had one of them, you can put him in some of the best players out there. Leans back on the kick and he's missed it. Minus score to the right.
That's why they are where they are, Aaron, because accepting performances like that, and I'm sorry, and I'm serious, as a past player, this is what happens at the footy club when guys aren't prepared to roll up their sleeves and actually fight.
89 the margin. Cleary comes in for Port Adelaide. Goes long out onto the eastern side of the ground, middle of the pack. It's Laddams who comes down with it. Looked like he's in a bit of pain then, and he is in a bit of pain. Just gathering himself as he hands off to Houston, runs wide, keeps it on the eastern side of the ground. Kennedy takes a strong mark, centre of a three-man pack, and left half back for Carlton.
So the Power need 4 goals to move into top spot. The win is locked away. They're up by 89. They've got 3 minutes to work with, so time might be against them, but you never know. Milestone man Mark Murphy in his 300th and final game kicks from left half back down the line and turns it over. Cleary gets ahead of De Koning, takes the mark.
Is that definitely been called, Aaron? It is. He's not playing next week at all?
Yes, this is his final game.
Right.
He's been playing as the medical sub the past few weeks to get to this tally, but this will be it for Mark Murphy. Ollie Wines heads into the 50 for the Power. Dixon once again in a one-on-one. Wiedering got a hand to it, tapped it to ground. Fisher with a quick clearance, just spiralled it to the arc, and it sat favourably for McGovern, who marks just inside defensive 50 on the western side.
And he comes down this western side to Ed Curnow. He loops a hand pass over the top, and run down was Williamson. Brilliant from Rosie. Williamson just trying to hold on to the ball and delay things, and he's still trying to do it. And the umpires...
It's got to be 50. You can't... That's ridiculous.
He's allowed him to get away with Rosie a couple of times trying to get the ball. Now he plays on. Down the line he goes. Plowman does well, almost took a one-hander, and then it came out to Wines, gave it to Marshall, wide for Amon. He's got time to pause, reflect, and then go short into the pocket. And that man, Charlie Dixon, takes the mark. And Dixon looks back and considers. And then he decides, no, I'm going to take a shot at goal. And I'll take a punt now. Down to Jack Paqueta.
The official diagnosis from Port Adelaide, Scott Lycett out of the game with a jarred knee.
So there you go. 2 weeks out from finals. Well, depending on what the AFL decides to do in terms of when the finals will actually start. It's not what you want to hear if you're a Port fan. So Dixon crosses the boundary line, shoots at goal, shoots right across the goal face, and it's punched through for the minor score.
And just to put it in perspective, how much Port have dominated this quarter, and pains me to say, Port have had double the amount of disposals. They're doubling contested possessions. They've had double or 10-4 in terms of clearances, and they've kicked 8 goals, 3 to 2 points in this quarter. I mean, it's just getting ugly quickly, obviously.
We've had some long quarters here at the Adelaide Oval, so we'll have a quick finish as we depart to the next game very shortly at the Gabba. He'll be taking Brisbane up against Collingwood with Quinton Hull and Michael Price. It is Port Adelaide by 90 points. They have the ball in the centre square. Burn-Jones heads to right half forward to Houston. Called to play on. The players don't realise. It's a 50.
Saad got dropped behind the thing.
I
think it was either Butters or Rosie, and then Saad just said, I've had enough of this, and just went back at him and threw him on the ground. So I didn't see the initial bit. All I saw was Saad.
Jack Paqueta's amongst it. He can let us know.
Yeah, it was Zach Butters that came past and just hit Saad a little bit late. Saad was down, and then all of a sudden just flicked a switch and got up and ran straight to Zach Butters.
He had a crack at Tom Williamson too. He's got a big mouth.
So Houston has a shot on goal from 30 and converts. 21 majors for the Power tonight. 19 unanswered goals since midway through the second quarter. Port Adelaide 21-14, 140, leading Carlton 5-14-44. This is a Blues side that led by 23 points at one point in this game. And now it is Port Adelaide up by a massive margin here at the Adelaide Oval.
Well, they just showed it on the replay. It was a high sort of slap as he kicked it that got Adam Saad, and then he just went back at him and just, shirt fronted him and pushed him onto the ground. So Zach Butters, he's just got to be careful, man. They're going into a final series. He's missed a lot of footy. He's an important part of this team. Just call your Jets.
Campo, Jamo, you're 3-2-1 for the evening.
Oh, just working through it at the minute, Aaron, if you wouldn't mind just finishing off the last 40 seconds.
You've got 2 minutes to get through it, so I'll put you on the clock there as the bounce happens in the middle. And it wasn't a great one, so we'll get a reset. So coming up next, we're headed to Brisbane and Collingwood on Grandstand AFL earlier today. Hawthorn defeating the Western Bulldogs by 27. Geelong defeating St Kilda by 14. Port Adelaide will not move into top spot, but they'll be temporarily in the top 2 as a result of this win tonight. It's a massive margin for the Power. Carlton looking for a late clearance in Mark Murphy's 300th and final game. They'll dribble it into the 50. Betts can gather. Gets a hand pass out to Fisher, who threw it onto Casbolt. Gets it on the boot and hits the right-hand goalpost. Minor score for the Blues. Down by 95 as the clock will run out here at the Adelaide Oval for them. Aliir has possession in the defensive goal square. 21-14, 140 Port Adelaide. Carlton 5-15, 45. The Power lock away a top 4 finish. 5 straight wins for Port Adelaide. They spoil Mark Murphy's milestone game. Winners by 95 points. Jamo, you're 3, 2 and 1?
Yeah, look, there's many Port Adelaide players. Dan Houston, 1 vote. Travis Spoke, 2. Ollie Wines, 3.
Thanks to everyone who was part of the coverage tonight. Congratulations to Port Adelaide. What a massive win. 95 points on Grandstand AFL. They've locked away a second top 4 finish. They're headed to the final series with 5 straight wins and the Western Bulldogs to come next week. Thanks for your company. Congratulations to Mark Murphy in his 300th and final game. For our listeners, you're headed to the Gabba. It's Brisbane up against Collingwood.
We've got the power to win.